beginnings as a son of the previous CEO.
If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would someday be the CEO of my dad's company, I would have said, absolutely not. I mean, it feels like just yesterday that I started off as a senior executive at this company, and now I'm in charge of the place.
Lightman told reporters that he credits his continued success in business to a number of crucial moments in his career, including getting hired by his father's retirement, and a few lucky breaks in between.
I'm not going to lie to you, it was a lot of work. I was here for nearly 8 hours every day. Someone clearly saw my efforts and took notice. You know, a lot of young people ask for my advice, and I always say the same thing. Work hard, and it will lead to bigger and better things. That's what I tell my kids.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Well, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network. Coming at you live from Nashville, Tennessee. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash with fees of less than a penny per transaction. Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, and they are widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Mayor protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And of course, do not forget, while tonight we are called Liberty at Night, every single day of the week we are called Good Morning Liberty. So you can find Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app and even watch the video of the episode on Spotify or YouTube or Rumble or Odyssey. So make sure you find Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app and leave a rating and review. You were talking about that Trump rally, Brad, in Butler. Did you watch it? Were you there?
No, I wasn't there. I caught some of it. There were a lot of people there, though. Seemed.
Heard about that? Yeah. Seemed like there were a lot of people.
I do think it's very smart that Trump went back to Butler, Pennsylvania.
To try and remind people that he's, been almost assassinated a couple times.
Two-time attempted assassin.
Two-time.
Survivor.
When he goes to bed, he's not just normal Donald Trump going to bed.
No.
He's two-time assassination attempt survivor Donald Trump.
Right.
Going to get some much-needed shut-eye. Okay.
For like 2 hours.
When he dreams, he doesn't dream just any old dream, No. He dreams about becoming three-time attempted assassination survivor Donald Trump. So anyhow, eventually he'll be enough. So that happened. You said Elon Musk had some things to say. I had a busy weekend. I was in Chattanooga hanging out with the family.
Yeah. There's a few clips going around. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't watch it live. We had a fun weekend. We were busy this weekend, and ends up apparently Elon has a prediction.
What's the prediction? His
prediction is that if Donald Trump doesn't win, that this is the last election that America will have. Now, that seems like a wild conspiracy. However, Elon Musk is not. Elon Musk is not. His predictions are not all that wild.
You're saying he's not an idiot.
He's not an idiot.
He's a smart man. Yeah.
Yes.
I got you.
I don't think he had braces on his legs growing up.
I don't think it'll be the last election. They'll give us some fake elections afterwards. We'll still have the
he essentially seems
pomp
to think,
and circumstance.
Or at least the way he's talking is that if Donald Trump doesn't win, then democracy dies. This is it.
Democracy kind of sucks anyway. So I don't know. I don't know which one.
Yeah. He also thinks like freedom of speech is gone. Mm-hmm. He thinks some of the foundational principles of America are no longer going to be allowed.
I think when I hear things like this, I'm like, okay, could just be some election rhetoric happening for sure. Has a hint of truth to it because we keep getting more and more authoritarian as more time goes on. And so eventually Yeah, that could be the case. And I think Elon's big thing is immigration, and he thinks there's going to be mass amnesty, and people are going to be, you're going to have all these new immigrants that are going to be voting eventually, maybe not in the next election, but the election after that, something like that. And when I hear stuff like that, I just go down to, well, it kind of sounds like the government has way too much power, and we should focus on making sure the government has 1% of the power that it has right now. Because, you can't plan on solving these problems by having the right guy in office, because you can't guarantee me you're always going to have the right guy in office. Mm-hmm. And so I just want people to focus on decreasing spending and taxation and regulation and stripping the government of any power they possibly can. Trump did some of that. Really, his Supreme Court justices that he appointed did some of that, with that Chevron decision and other things. And so that's been pretty cool to see what the court's done on those. He didn't decrease spending or taxing, really. I mean, taxes went down. They still are taking in more money. More tariffs, that is going to equal higher prices for everyone, too. I wish the many things that we talk about today are going to center around the fact that the government just needs to have less power, so the elections are not that important.
And spend way less money.
Yeah. While we're on the Elon thing, I'll skip ahead to, let's see, there's a post here from Destiny who says, yep, to this. I've seen this going around a lot, and it's Elon Musk saying in 2022, for Twitter to deserve public trust, it must be politically neutral, which effectively means upsetting the far right and the far left equally. So that says how it started. And the bottom one says how it's going. And it's Elon Musk saying he's headed to Pennsylvania to speak at the Donald Trump rally in Butler. And so I've seen...
Why does that matter?
It doesn't. And it's so annoying. I can't tell if people are just intentionally being stupid when it comes to these things, or if they just really are stupid. There's a difference in saying that Twitter, the company, needs to be politically neutral, and I believe that's in the way it enforces its rules. For instance, before Elon Musk took over, it seemed to be a lot of things in right-wing ideology would get censored on Twitter, and basically anything you wanted to say in left-wing ideology was totally fine. You just talk about how much you hate white people all day and how they're scourge of the earth and need to be destroyed, and they probably get amplified in the algorithm, And so I think there's a difference in saying that Twitter should be neutral politically, and the owner of Twitter having a political ideology and supporting a certain candidate. Like that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And the other big difference is that when it was happening before Elon, it was a lot of gaslighting, like where they would act like it wasn't happening. They were still doing it, And
then the Twitter files came out, and it didn't even matter.
Yeah. That's like no one's really talking about that so much anymore. Like, we know how this was being run, and we know that the other platforms were just as bad or worse. And the difference is that it was in secret. And if you made that accusation, they'd be like, "Oh, you're crazy. That's not true. It's just that, these things are wrong, and so they have to be censored or whatever." But now, hey, at least it's out there in the open, I think that's a good thing. Yeah. At least it's out there in the open. But I don't know if these people really are this dumb. Are they actually that dumb?
Yeah.
Is Destiny actually that dumb, or does he just intentionally say stupid things to get more engagement?
I think it's both. I think some people are actually that dumb. I think some people are smart enough, as you and I talked about before the show, how easy it would be for us to become rich.
Yeah.
All we have to do is compromise our principles.
Well, that's it. A few of the things we're about to talk about.
We could just dive into conspiracy theories full force and act like we know what we're talking about. And it's true. And it would go viral, and the money would flow.
Yeah.
Or we could go not even hard left, just slightly left. Gaslight people, talk about those things. We're smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
And the money would come flowing in.
Even if we would adjust our libertarianism to hating corporations and rich people, which is still acceptable in some libertarian circles, we would do better. if we did that.
Yeah.
But we can't.
No. There's something inside of us that's like, you'll never make it because you care about objective truth too much.
Now, Elon says that this could be the last election. I'll present Elon.
I mean, even Elon Musk, think about that, okay? This guy's out there willing to say things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to fully get behind Donald Trump, to fully support him.
Yeah.
And not just, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I find that there's a lot of people that are just willing to go along in a certain direction because it's beneficial.
Well, so as
financially mainly.
As libertarians, we have this block on, the lesser of two evils is still evil kind of thing. So like we could make the argument all the time that like Kamala Harris is the most dangerous thing that ever happened and we have to get Trump elected, and we could probably make plenty of arguments. I mean, we make more arguments in favor of Trump than we do in favor of Kamala Harris most of the time, but we're not just out here stumping for Trump all the time because we know the lesser of two evils is still evil, and we know that we need more than these two parties. We know that we need better than what these two candidates are. And if you just give in and are like, all right, this is it, so we're just going to fight as hard as we're supposed to, well, there's no incentive for anyone to ever do better. Yeah. Like in my mind, like, well, I'm not going to go vote for Kamala, Trump, or Chase this year because I want each one of those parties to do better in selecting their candidates. Like it doesn't. We're in Tennessee. Trump's going to win 65% of the vote here in Tennessee, or potentially more. So that's easy for us to say.
He won 70-some%.
I don't have to go vote this year. It's not important. I don't have to do it. And so my vote is probably going to be a non-vote because I want better candidates. And so I'm not just going to give in this election cycle and say, okay, well, these are the people, and so I'm going to go real hard on one of them. There's no incentive to change when you do that. Now, I do have good news for Elon Musk, who's a big fan of the show. Glad he's here listening right now. We appreciate it. Appreciate it, Elon. I did this research this morning. I've shown you. We've shown you several times what the 538 polls look like. And I realized over the weekend, like, man, every time we talk about these poll differences, I have to go and pull up each one of these things and screenshots and try and figure out what the difference was. So I made a chart. I got a little Excel chart here. And I wanted to show you in 2020 versus the polls versus the final, what the miss was, what the current polls are saying, and what it would look like if that exact same miss happens on the polls. And I'll just tell you the polling misses, okay? Nationally, Trump did 3.9% better than what the polls were. Pennsylvania, he did 4.5% better. Arizona, he did 2.2% better. North Carolina, he did 3.1% better. Nevada, he did 2.9% better. Michigan, he did 5.1% better. Wisconsin, he did 7.8% better. In Georgia, he did 0.9% better than what the polls said was going to happen in 2020. You got to keep in mind, it's always entirely possible that they figured out what they were doing wrong. And that
just like they do every 4 years.
Yeah, they're just going to nail it this time. All right. They're just going to nail it. Now, right now in 2024, national, Trump is down 2.6. Pennsylvania, he's down 0.6. Arizona, he's up 1.3. North Carolina, he's up 0.8. Nevada, he's down 0.9. Michigan, he's down 1.6. Wisconsin, he's down 1.6. Georgia, he's up 1.3. This is according to the 538 polling averages and all the polls that they come together. They decide that they're good enough and they put them in their polling average. If that exact same miss happens again, the same way it did in 2020, that means Trump wins the national popular vote. He wins Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. All of them. And the lowest win, other than the national popular vote, would be Nevada at +2. If the same swing happens again with the polls. Now, I did it again where I say, okay, well, let's say they figured out what they were doing wrong. They do better this time. So let's make the adjustment half. Let's say they've done a little bit better And for instance, instead of being off by 4
He
points,
still wins all the swing
they're
states.
off by 2. He loses the national popular vote by 0.7 points and then still wins every single swing state. If the miss is half of what the miss was in 2020.
Now, do you do this at 30 days out?
No, I did this a day before the election. So yeah, not right now. But I figured that's just the best constant to just keep in here. So like, I do think like what Big Gus said, the Trump landslide would be fun to watch. I also think a landslide is important because it could help get some of the stolen election stuff out of the way, so we can just accept. And then maybe the left can say, well, maybe we shouldn't put up terrible candidates, or maybe there's something to this whole Trump thing. There's a lot of people who believe this, Do
you think if Trump does win in a landslide, the left will just accept it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Think there will be any lawsuits or anything, or
probably not?
You think like not my president?
Some of these states where they purged the voter rolls, which means they've removed people who moved or dead, or I don't know, whatever the other reasons are that they remove people. There could potentially be maybe some lawsuits that have to do with those, but no, probably not. I think they'll just go with Russia or whatever, pick your thing, whatever the thing is. I think they'll go with that. But that's what it's showing right now. Let's see. We talked about what Destiny said. We showed what the polls were. Don't forget, Charlie, that today is the 1-year anniversary of October 7th of Israel being attacked by Hamas. And so I wanted to give you a little clip from Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview and how they are handling this war and their influence over Benjamin Netanyahu and their just great foreign policy dealings coming out of the Biden-Harris administration. And so here's one of the newer clips of Kamala Harris just tossing up a word salad for all of us to enjoy. All right, here we go.
We supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. And yet Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. He has promised to make Iran pay for the missile attack, and that has the potential of expanding the war. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is without any question our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against those kinds of attacks. Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this war to end, the need for a deal to be done, which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire. And we're not going to stop in terms of putting that pressure on Israel and in the region, including Arab leaders.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American
I love that answer, that the work that we have done has resulted in things that were the result of the work that we have done. I think that that's a good That's a good way of explaining the situation, in my opinion.
Spot on, man.
So, Charlie, 1 year. 1 year. October 7th was terrible, clearly. 1,200 people died, I believe, over the course of that time. Absolutely disgusting the things that were done. In response, we've seen tens of thousands of people killed by Israel, some of them terrorists, some of them innocent men, women, and children. People always say women, and like including women and children. I'm like, what about equality?
Yeah.
There are still innocent men in this world.
Not if they're military.
Okay.
Not if they're military age.
I guess that's true. So, but I mean, military age male over there is probably anywhere from like 9 to I don't know, 60 or so, something like that. Anyhow, tens of thousands of men.
All men.
It's now expanded into Lebanon. I don't know if you say it like Tennessee, Lebanon.
I think
or
it's
like
Lebanon.
Middle East, Lebanon. Okay. And
Iran has launched missiles now.
Launched missiles, didn't kill anyone, but actually saw missiles hitting Israel. Israel, they killed the leader of Hezbollah and like hundreds of civilians at the same time. And I'm not really ever happy when a bunch of innocent, poor civilians get killed. It's not really ever great to me. And so, without going into the history of Israel and Palestine and the formation of Israel and all that, please just go listen to Dave Smith or Scott Horton or something like that if you want to listen and learn on that. My biggest question is Israel safer now? Are the civilians safer now than they were a year or two ago? Will the next 10 years for Israel be safer for the citizens there as a result of their actions over the last year, or will they be more dangerous? What do you think?
It looks like the last year has been more dangerous.
Well, but what do the next 10 years look like?
I think that really all depends.
That's true.
So
it does depend.
There is a way in which you can use enough military power to take out enough people that it can create.
Like if you kill everyone other than the people in your country?
It can create safety for about 10 years, but then eventually there's going to be a power that rises up that's going to pay you back for that.
Then their kids are going to be ready, finished with their bombs by that time.
I mean, if you look at what happened in Afghanistan and the Middle East, what the United States did in the 80s and 90s, we still had relative peace over here until September 11th, 2001. I mean, so they took a long time to plan a really good terrorist attack that worked on American soil as payback.
So we'll finish up this conversation about Israel, Gaza, October 7th, all of that stuff, and a whole lot more, including a great interview from our new guy, Josh, and of course, Dumb Bleep of the Week. Find Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app. This is Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live Network.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
We're expecting Milton to be a dangerous, large, powerful hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida, and it's going to bring multiple life-threatening hazards.
The director of America's National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan, warning that Hurricane Milton, gathering force in the Gulf of Mexico, is poised to be a once-in-a-century storm. It's already resulted in U.S. President Joe Biden cancelling a planned trip to Germany later this week, where he was due to meet Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. The president says he needs to stay in Washington to deal with the emergency created by Milton. With more on the storm, FSN's Mitch McCann.
Milton was registered as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday morning and is expected to hit Tampa late Wednesday local time as a Category 3. Residents have been warned to evacuate areas likely to be affected, and at least 9 counties have now made mandatory evacuation orders. Tampa's Mayor, Jane Castor, has issued a dire warning, saying if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Miami-Dade remains under a state of emergency ahead of the storm making landfall. Mayor Daniela Levine Carver is urging local residents to heed warnings about the storm's power.
Please make sure you have 3 days of supplies, non-perishable food and water, that they would be on hand for every member of your household.
In other news, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and his warnings about the horrific impacts of escalation are being ignored. The Secretary General has called for an immediate ceasefire both in Gaza and Lebanon. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Jody Jacobs reports.
Antonio Guterres has once again voiced his concern over the escalating violence in the Middle East. Guterres has described the situation in Lebanon as boiling over.
Every airstrike, every missile launch, every rocket fired pushes peace further out of reach.
The Secretary General has questioned the disregard for international law, saying there is something fundamentally wrong in the way this war is being conducted. He says civilians must be protected and their essential needs must be met, including through humanitarian assistance.
The head of the British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia wants to create sustained mayhem on British and European soil. Ken McCullum said Russian operatives are acting increasingly recklessly in Britain since the war in Ukraine got underway. The so-called godfather of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, has shared the Nobel Prize for Physics with another scientist, John Hopfield of Princeton University. Mr. Hinton quit Google last year, warning that he was concerned that the technology he had helped create poses dangers to society. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
And we are back. This is Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Tuesday. Like us, you guys are probably concerned that your privacy is being attacked by people on the radical left. The deep state's invading individuals' private messages and targeting them based on their political affiliation. That's why we've partnered with Freedom Chat, a private social messaging app that believes privacy is a fundamental human right. Freedom Chat offers true end-to-end encryption, built-in screenshot protection to ensure that no one can screenshot your conversations, no storage of messages on their servers, and no commercial use of user data. This is the app that we trust, and it's the app that we rely on, especially as we approach the election. Some people will stop at nothing to maintain power, making privacy protection more important than ever. You can download the app right now by going to freedomchat.com/GML. We're such a fan of Freedom Chat that we've created our own private channel, which you can subscribe to for exclusive content, including never-before-seen images, videos, and posts. Simply download the app, search for our channel, Good Morning Liberty, and subscribe. No one can see the channels you're subscribed to or the posts you react to. It's your own private news feed. And if you're on Android, you can subscribe to their wait list by going to freedomchat.com/GML. Speak freely and message privately with Freedom Chat, Again, download the app today and subscribe to our channel at Good Morning Liberty for exclusive posts and never before seen content. That's freedomchat.com/GML. GML, by the way, stands for Good Morning Liberty. As I said while I was talking about Freedom Chat, Good Morning Liberty is our daily podcast, 1,375 episodes strong. We've been doing it for quite some time now. Right now, you hear us and we're called Liberty at Night. That's because it's not morning right now, so we're not going to say good morning Liberty to you guys, but every single day we release a new episode on the Good Morning Liberty podcast channel. Go find that on your favorite podcast app. You can watch the videos on Spotify, YouTube, or Rumble. We need to go ahead and get back into this conversation about Israel and Gaza. It's complicated. I'll say it's just it's very complicated, especially as libertarians, to talk about these things, but let's try and do it.
I don't really know what the answer is because I understand the need for revenge or vengeance, let's say, the need to protect yourself.
And even, not even revenge or vengeance, but justice, is killing the people who did what they did on October 7th. Yeah. I think that part is justice, So I don't just want to say it's all revenge, like those people deserve what's coming to them or what came to them. I just don't know if their families deserved it or their neighbors and stuff like that. Right. That's kind of a problem. My feeling is that they are in much more danger now than they've. I've never seen this many people that hate Israel in my lifetime. So many people around the world. Now, we didn't have social media when we were growing up. I don't know exactly what the climate was around that time. This is anecdotal evidence or whatever. But there seems to be a lot more people who hate Israel. And my feeling is that even though they've killed a ton of terrorists, what we know about terrorists is, when you kill one, about 10 pop up in their place. And so by that math, they should be in much more danger than they were like a year ago.
But are you saying there should have been no response?
No, I think there should have been a very tactical, covert, and risky response for the Israeli soldiers. I think in order to preserve Israeli soldiers' lives, they decided to kill like 40,000 people on the other side of the border. And they're like, well, what do you want them to do? That if they go in there, they're going to get slaughtered. And I'm like, you're a soldier. You're there to, lay down your life for your country and your countrymen and women, And I think that if they would have gone in, they probably would have lost some more soldiers. But they could have been more tactical in taking out the people who actually did October 7th without the tens of thousands of people in collateral damage. Easy for me to say from over here. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a way they could have done it where they could have got justice and not angered the entire world. They could have kept the moral high ground the entire time, which is important, and achieved the objective of justice for what happened on October 7th at the same time. But
surely they have some type of born identity program, right? I mean, can't they send in these assassins? That never die, and they're just able to mow people down.
They can do anything.
And limit. Yeah. I've seen the movies.
Send in John Wick. He can take care of it.
Yeah.
He gets shot at like 40,000 times, and he just holds up his suit jacket like this. His hand never gets hit.
No.
Even though he's holding up a suit jacket right here, which is miraculous, And so, I saw him kill 2,000 people in one movie one time, and that was just over the course of 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the end of the day, what's super important for us as Americans is that our money doesn't get stolen and just given to other people around the world. That's where I think my opinion really comes in. Okay, that's their business. Don't take my money and give it to them to do the things that they're doing. Israel is so great and powerful, and they're technologically advanced and fighting these savages over there. As they're
one of the richest countries in the Middle East.
Tech hub in the Middle East and all that kind of stuff. Don't take my money and use it to give to American defense contractors so then they can send those bombs over there. And then we can be nice little isolationist libertarians who let people deal with their own problems. But unfortunately, we have to be involved in it because some of this is our money being used to do this. Mm-hmm. So that would be my last argument is, stop giving them stuff. Don't give them the stuff anymore. Let them make their own stuff.
I don't know what the answer is. I'll tell you that much.
Well, there isn't, there's no...
Well, I'm just asking, like, okay, let's say like you were Jewish and you were the prime minister of Israel. Mm-hmm. What would your answer be? I mean, obviously you have a population relying on you for payback. Right? Yeah. There's people that want Hezbollah and Hamas to come to justice. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you do?
I would say number one, I would not be a proponent of funding Hamas. You're saying I'm the prime minister of Israel, and so I'm just saying I would say no to funding Hamas. And two, I would be like, hey, we got word that there's going to be this big attack here in a couple weeks. I'd probably listen to that also at the same time. And then number three, like I said, I can't just go in and I wouldn't be able to sleep. I feel like there's a number of innocent civilians that once I hit it, I wouldn't be able to sleep anymore at night. Yeah. And 30, 40,000, that's getting close to my limit on the amount of people I could kill.
T-Dub says target strike teams. We didn't kill tens of thousands of Pakistanis to kill Osama bin Laden.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. But the response to that has always been, that Israel would have lost a lot of people if they would have tried to do that. Okay. You're the ones trying to go in there and get justice for what happened. You're telling me that you're not willing to lay down your life to defend your country? That's not the case. And then even if you disagree with me on that, I don't think they're safer now than they used to be. There's so many more people out there that hate them than what there were a year ago.
Yeah, so that's what happens when you kill innocent people.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Got all their families, got all the people watching around the world. They lost the moral high ground. And if you want Israel to be safer, I think you also would disagree with what's happened over the last year. But if you want vengeance, then you probably agree with what you've seen over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'll tell you what, people have been trying to take out the Jews.
It's been happening for a while.
Jews have a target on their back.
Yeah. It's tough to be a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
Real tough. I wanted to talk about the hurricane thing real quick, but we're running out of time. And so I don't know how much we can do this.
Well, we can talk about how the government's created this. This is probably to disrupt voting in Florida.
That's probably what it is. Yeah. Probably they're going to make the hurricane to where it only hits areas where Republicans were going to vote in Florida.
Yeah.
And
you notice no hurricanes hitting Miami,
Yeah. And so that's part of their plan, I would say right now. No, so I can't get behind the whole these are man-made hurricanes thing, but there's a lot of people that are on that train right now. Let me tell you what. I'm not saying they can't do it.
There's people tracking the NOAA flights.
Yeah.
I
mean, people are going hard on this.
It's wild.
Well, let me ask you this. What are you going to do once you finally prove it? You found it. You found that here's the document. The guy was supposed to shred it and he didn't shred it. Instead, he sold it to the New York Post for $1 million. Okay. Which, by the way, would happen if it existed.
Yeah.
All right. What are you going to do when you find it? You know how many conspiracy theories even get proved? Like, first off, half the population, 60% of the population, 70%, they're not even going to believe it even if you showed them a documented evidence of it happening in the first place. Okay, I guess it's important to know, like, let's say the government, CIA, has a secret program where they're creating hurricanes to do something. Yeah. I can't figure out what they're doing.
Right.
Like, what's the incentive? Is it disaster capitalism? They want to wipe out these areas so people can come in and buy it up for cheap, something like that. But
rebuild.
No, like, why
would
the
broken window fallacy?
What is it? Yeah, just spend it. Are they washing money here? Is that what it is? They can wash way more money overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why mess with it over here?
Well, you need the rain.
It's the unit. You know who's going to get the contracts to rebuild all these roads and bridges and stuff like that? freaking unions. Unions are going to get those contracts. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. I haven't seen any
This
proof.
is just another tactic by the longshoremen.
It is.
Out in the Gulf now. Before they were in the Atlantic, they brought Helene through. Now,
Milton's coming through now. Grant Cardone. This argument I feel like is really dumb, but I've seen it several times now. Here's what Grant Cardone said. Charlie?
I grew up on the Gulf of Mexico, been watching storms since I was a young boy. I have never seen a storm start here and go east. Do you think government is using technology to manipulate weather patterns and storms?
And so just if you haven't seen the pictures, this is a hurricane that is originating in the Gulf, which, spoiler alert,
has happened.
Has happened because who else do you guys know that went through and looked at the tracks of almost 100 hurricanes this morning before this show? Me. This guy right here.
Yeah.
Because we've got the tracks of all, unless they went in and changed all of them so we wouldn't see that this has never happened. But you can go and look at the track of like every storm for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
And
how old is Grant now? 60 maybe?
Something.
62?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So he's got 62 years of data.
Yeah.
Right. Here's another one, Charlie.
It's a blip.
This is from Black Insurrectionist.
All right. I am not a person who believes in the weather manipulation theory. I believe many conspiracies, but that is one I just can't get my arms around. But I have to tell you, I don't remember a hurricane forming like this. I could be wrong, but do any of you remember a hurricane forming and acting like this? If so, tell me the name of that hurricane. I would like to do research on it, but this does seem very odd. Hey, that seems pretty humble, though.
No, that's a good
way of putting it.
It's a good way.
Just say, hey, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't remember.
He's saying I
Somebody
don't remember this.
Essentially, like I'm ignorant. Somebody help educate me if I'm missing something here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a good way of putting it.
This is Hurricane Earl.
Well, Earl had to die.
Now, I know why neither one of these people remember it, because it was way back in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
26 years ago, man.
But Hurricane Earl, now to be fair, I'm going to zoom in and where this started. Now, we don't have the exact thing as Hurricane Milton, but Hurricane Milton's starting like right over here.
Mm-hmm.
And the Earl's, like 300 miles south right here, but still starting in the Gulf and then heading out east towards Florida. And that was just me clicking on hurricane tracks until I found one that originated there. It took me, well, to be honest,
that was the early test from Halliburton.
Yeah, that's when they first tested it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, got something here.
They're like, this is a little unpredictable. I think we'll just do 9/11 instead.
Yeah.
They went back to the drawing board after that. And so it took me about 2 minutes to find this hurricane track because it was the fourth one that I clicked on. But that's just a little bit of research there. So the whole like hurricanes don't form here and head east like this. Okay, well, we've got evidence from 26 years ago of a hurricane doing that. It might not be common, but let me ask you this. We have had satellite data for hurricanes for 40 years. About 40 years. And my big bother with this is that, and I posted this out this morning, there are people who think that every one of these hurricanes is because of climate change. And there are people who think, apparently now, every one of these hurricanes is man-made. Which means both of those groups of people...
That goes hand in hand, by the way. Climate change, man-made.
Oh, it's true. They both think they're man-made.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even put two and two together. They both believe the hurricanes are man-made, which makes them even more similar, which means this group of people thinks that somehow Earth has stopped having natural disasters. Because every time one of these things happens, it's either climate change or it's someone cloud seeding or harping or whatever it is that they did, and that's why it formed. And so we just don't have natural disasters anymore. And you got people posting like it's intensifying. The storms seem to be intensifying faster than we've ever seen, quicker than we've ever seen. Okay. Simple question. I'm not saying they aren't intensifying faster. Not saying that. How long have we been tracking real-time hurricane intensification data? How many years do you think we've been doing that?
Yeah.
Like 20?
I just think Milton's probably got a Hemi. I mean,
that's what it is.
Yeah,
well, it's an EV hurricane is what it is. The acceleration is ridiculous, you know? But that's this newfangled technology. That's modern hurricanes for you.
It went from 0 to 150 in, about a day.
Yeah.
And it's
and so I'm not, this is the annoying part that people just don't want to hear about because everything's got to be so hyperbolic all the time. It's got to be so speculative all the time. But unfortunately, the answer is we don't know. And that's an annoying answer for people. They do not want to hear that we don't know. Are they intensifying faster? I don't know. Maybe as far as all the hurricanes that we have minute to minute, second to second intensification data for, which is probably 0.00000, add 10 more zeros, 1% of all the hurricanes that have occurred on planet Earth. And for someone to look at that and say, look, this is a trend. It's laughable for me to say, but that's what they're saying. It's not scientific at all. And then for people to say, oh, look at this has to be man-made. They never start here and go that way. Dude, it took me 2 minutes to find a chart of a hurricane in 1998 that started there.
And even
I bet you there's a bunch more.
Even one of the Cranstonsteins here says this is one of the fastest storms. So you're saying it's not
the fastest
storm.
Yeah.
So that's happened faster before.
So I'm not.
Hurricanes have been a part of Earth's history probably since the beginning of Earth.
Probably.
Okay. Now, there's reasons why this happens. If you look at the jet stream, by the way, it dips down into the Gulf of Mexico right now, which is going to help this storm move quickly to Florida. There's other factors going on. It is hurricane season currently.
We still have we choose what hurricane season is, I guess.
It's the conditions are currently the best conditions to birth and intensify a hurricane. Apparently the Gulf of Mexico, record high temperatures in the Gulf.
Record high.
And even deep down, they're high. So that's going to actually intensify the storm because it, loves them warm waters, the warm bath.
The important part is not that we disproved.
But here's why. Okay. Here's why you see this breaking. This is seemingly getting stronger, faster. We've never seen anything like this. It's because that sells. That's why. That's why. We talked about this at the beginning of the show. That's why. And it's just easy to spot. But people seem to eat it up. And then their minds start going wild and they start speculating like, oh man, did you see that? And like, for some reason for most people, it seems to bring up and tap into their, the anxious part of themselves. And it's so, like they have to do something. They have to act. They have to, I don't know.
It makes you feel like you could
it's
potentially...
pure manipulation.
It makes you feel like you could potentially have control over it. I think people look for how can it be that we have control over this? And that means we can do something to stop this. If we can just find the guy who's hitting the hurricane button in the lab, well, then we could stop this from happening, And if we can just find the guy that's hitting the climate change button in the lab, then we can stop this, But Earth has natural disasters, and we don't know.
How do we know it's a disaster for Earth?
Yeah. Actually, it's just weather.
Could be her way of,
It's a disaster for us.
Yeah. It just could be her way of, shifting around the sand.
Yeah.
Maybe she doesn't like all the sand in Tampa currently and she wants to move it over a little further.
Yeah. That's probably what's happening.
And, increase the sand on the west side.
Big Gus said if it bleeds, it leads. That was the case for the mainstream media, for the legacy media, and it's also the case for social media. All of these are just independent people who have found out what news anchors and journalists found out a long time ago, is that people are addicted to this kind of stuff. It's what grabs their attention. And now we are just mass producing it on a big scale. And it's up to people to decide whether or not they're going to give into it. I'm not saying these things aren't happening. I'm not. What I'm saying is no one has shown me proof. You can show me that, and I can say, dude, you got 40 years of data. Earth's been here, according to the scientists, for 4.5 billion years. I'm not a genius, but 40 years out of 4.5 billion is not enough data for me to say that we know that hurricanes are intensifying faster than they ever have in history. And the same thing goes for the man-made. Oh, never had one form here. Dude, we got 40 years of satellite data. We got like another 100 years before that of ships that were accidentally in that location and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we got all the
Lieutenant Dan was on there.
Billions of years before that. And you're telling me, oh, this is the first time a storm has started in this location. You got no data to tell me that. And so before I'm going to buy into these conspiracy theories, someone's got to make a point to me that I can't disprove in freaking 10 seconds, or at least discount in 10 seconds. I'm not seeing it now. I believe we got to go.
We do. But preach, man.
I'm preaching.
Yeah.
I'm preaching. That's what I got today. Just try to be objective and keep an open mind. I have an open mind. Could they be manipulating the weather? Sure. They do cloud seeding. We know that they do cloud seeding.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a thing. They're like, hey, we do cloud seeding. That's awesome. We know that's a thing. Creating the whole hurricane. Sure.
It's a lot of seeds.
That's a lot of seeds. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I have a tough time finding the incentive. I know that there are some really bad incentives they can have, pushing the climate change narrative so you can funnel more money to your people who make solar panels and stuff like this. Sure. Okay. There's a little incentive right there.
There's a cost to creating the hurricane. So
yeah. But at the same time, we also have natural disasters on Earth. And so
hurricanes have been around for a long time.
You got to tell me why this one is not natural. And I don't remember a storm forming right here, and going this direction is not telling me that this isn't natural. Yeah. Okay, we got a whole lot more to come, including an interview, and then, of course, we'll be getting into Dumb Bleep of the Week on Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live Network.
Congress today passed a landmark Social Security reform bill they estimate could save the troubled program billions. The so-called Grab Life by the Balls bill includes provisions to cut the cost of cigarettes in half, outlaws helmets, and adjusts the CDC's recommended amount of sleep from 8 hours a night to when you're dead. The bill's short-term initiatives aim to immediately cut Social Security costs in half by replacing senior citizens' monthly checks with vouchers for grain, alcohol, and extreme sports.
I got this coupon to motocross over a canyon. Better do my part to help the deficit.
Supporters in Congress say the cost will be offset by the so-called pussy tax on products such as sweaters, vegetables, hand soap, and flu shots.
America, would you rather die old, broke, and forgotten, or die a motherfucking legend?
The new program follows in the footsteps of the Life is a Cartoon Medicare campaign, which encourages seniors to run full speed off of cliffs and smoke sticks of dynamite.
This is the Onion News Network.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
We're expecting Milton to be a dangerous, large, powerful hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida, and it's going to bring multiple life-threatening hazards.
The director of America's National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan, warning that Hurricane Milton, gathering force in the Gulf of Mexico, is poised to be a once-in-a-century storm. It's already resulted in US President Joe Biden cancelling a planned trip to Germany later this week, where he was due to meet Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. The president says he needs to stay in Washington to deal with the emergency created by Milton. With more on the storm, FSN's Mitch McCann.
Milton was registered as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday morning and is expected to hit Tampa late Wednesday local time as a Category 3. Residents have been warned to evacuate areas likely to be affected, and at least 9 counties have now made mandatory evacuation orders. Tampa's Mayor, Jane Castor, has issued a dire warning, saying if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Miami-Dade remains under a state of emergency ahead of the storm making landfall. Mayor Daniela Levine Carver is urging local residents to heed warnings about the storm's power.
Please make sure you have 3 days of supplies, non-perishable food and water, that they would be on hand for every member of your household.
In other news, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and his warnings about the horrific impacts of escalation are being ignored. The Secretary-General has called for an immediate ceasefire both in Gaza and Lebanon. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Jody Jacobs reports.
Antonio Guterres has once again voiced his concern over the escalating violence in the Middle East. Guterres has described the situation in Lebanon as boiling over.
Every airstrike, every missile launch, every rocket fired pushes peace further out of reach.
The Secretary-General has questioned the disregard for international law, saying there is something fundamentally wrong in the way this war is being conducted. He says civilians must be protected and their essential needs must be met, including through humanitarian assistance.
The head of the British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia wants to create sustained mayhem on British and European soil. Ken McCullum said Russian operatives are acting increasingly recklessly in Britain since the war in Ukraine got underway. The so-called godfather of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, has shared the Nobel Prize for Physics with another scientist, John Hopfield of Princeton University. Mr. Hinton quit Google last year, warning that he was concerned that the technology he had helped create poses dangers to society. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, 1 year on from the Hamas attacks on Israel, what is the future for any kind of negotiated settlement that leads to the creation of a two-state solution, Israel and a sovereign Palestinian state coexisting side by side? Matt Fry, presenter and correspondent with the UK's Channel 4 News, is on special assignment in Israel this week and says it's hard to overstate how much ground has been lost diplomatically over the course of the last violent and agonizing 12 months.
Saudi Arabia was pretty close to striking a bilateral deal with Israel before October the 7th. And one of the reasons why October the 7th is thought to have happened is basically Iran through its proxies in Hamas saying you can't do a deal over the heads of the Palestinian people. If anything good can come out of this appalling year, it is to try and fashion some kind of peace deal which involves the recognition of an independent, sovereign, viable Palestinian state. Israeli public opinion and Israeli voters, they're not there. If you speak to the remnants of Hamas, they are not there. They believe in a one-state solution with no Israel, and there are many Israelis who believe in a one-state solution which involves the Palestinians living here as second-class citizens or not at all.
And so the conflict enters a second year with very little optimism, with Lebanon, Hezbollah, Iran and the Houthis in Yemen all now fully involved in growing regional instability. The main news again. As Hurricane Milton bears down on Florida, US President Joe Biden has cancelled a scheduled trip to Germany and Angola, saying he needs to stay in the US to deal with the storm. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and the head of British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia is aiming to create sustained mayhem on European soil. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
It's the video sensation that's taking the internet by storm. A web series on YouTube passed the 100 views mark this week. Titled Andrew and John, the wildly popular webisodes feature roommates Andrew Vanier and John Haney playing fictionalized versions of themselves in unusual situations, mostly set in and around their Chicago apartment.
Dude, did you get my tart? What's a tart? Oh, you just texted me a fart.
Their latest short, titled Laundry Day, reached the unprecedented 100-view milestone this week after a heavy promotional push in which the duo posted the skits to their Facebook pages. The hit video features the roommates wearing unconventional outfits while scrounging up enough change to do laundry in their basement. Other popular episodes include Foreign Landlord, featuring John's friend Brett from work, and a video where Andrew suspects John might be a zombie.
Our videos consistently get over 50 views now, but Laundry Day, that's the first one that's really taken off.
Yeah, everyone I know has seen it.
It's completely viral.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. We're going to get you into an interview that Josh did with Daniel Eferentz.
I decided to write that op-ed because I was actually watching the rally when it happened on July 13th, and my first reaction, like every other American, was just shock, and just you feel a very weird feeling in your stomach, no matter whether you support Trump or you do not. That sort of violence, assassination attempts do not belong in our country. And that's how everyone felt in that moment. While I was shocked, I can't really say I was surprised when I learned that the person who attempted the assassination, Thomas Crooks, was 20 years old, especially because for almost half our lifetime, we've been dealing with divisive rhetoric, not only in a classroom, but also online as well. And I'm not saying that this is a referendum on anyone and everyone who is 20 years old. I'm 20 years old myself. But the way that we're dealing with political rhetoric, we're dealing with extremism in our classrooms and on social media, it lends itself to moments like that. And I can't tell you Thomas Crook's motive. We don't know. We don't know his motive. But at least I could tell you the type of America he grew up in as someone who's 20 years old as well.
Yeah. And I do apologize. I said Matthew, but yeah, it is Thomas Crook. Sorry about that. I messed that up, but thank you for catching that and correcting that, because I want to make sure that was right. Yeah. I can certainly, I was very shocked about this. I mean, we haven't had the assassination attempt since I was 2 years old, and I'm in my 40s before that. And so it was quite shocking to me as well. You talked a little bit afterwards about some of the reactions that your generation dealt with recently, and it spoke to me about how divided we really are. Because when I looked back at my childhood, after every election, there was no chance that we had anything like this. But you talked about how after Trump was elected in 2016, that your teachers brought your whole school in and talked to you and about what happened. Like, talk to us about what happened there and how that really opened your eyes to politics and started us, at least your generation, you think, down a road of division, as you described in the piece.
Yeah. So it's a day I'll never forget. It was a day right after Donald Trump first got elected into office. And I'm a seventh grader at this point in time. Obviously, I don't know much about politics. I don't care much about politics. I'm a seventh grader. And I walk into school, walk into the classroom, and there was this heavy feeling in the air. And our principal at the time walked into every single individual classroom and had these town halls where all the students can voice their opinions about how are they feeling and how they're feeling about how Trump got elected. I know this is a very bad day in America, so we have to get all this emotion off your chest, and this is a safe space for us to talk about, I mean, really how evil Donald Trump is. And again, I mean, we're seventh graders. We don't really know much about politics. All we know is what we hear on TV, what our parents tell us, and obviously what our teachers tell us. And I ended up loving politics later on, but most of the other students in that classroom still don't care for politics as much as I do. And it just doesn't have a place in the classroom. And since then, honestly, the political rhetoric in schools have gotten worse. I mean, from the time I was in seventh grade, I mean, that was a very specific time. Granted, it was the day after the election, and so it was just such a pressing issue that it got brought up into the classroom. But between that time and now as a college student today, I can confidently say that the amount of political rhetoric and it doesn't even have to correspond with national politics or national elections, just the little subtle political programming that goes on in classrooms, especially for somebody who does not care about politics, is alarming. And it lends itself to some of the worldviews that we are seeing some of the Gen Zers my age have. And I'll forever remember that day. And it's just a very good example, at least a good anecdotal example of what Gen Zers are dealing with in the classroom.
Sure. And I can look back, like on the one hand, of course, we like none of the teachers, nobody is responsible for what Thomas Crooks did other than Thomas Crooks. He did what he did. But what we're talking about is people of authority, people who become mentors to young people, really wearing those political emotions on their sleeve and affecting the lives of young people. And I'm in my 40s. I went through several elections when I was in school and then college, and it never would happen. We certainly talked about politics, but I couldn't tell you what any of my teachers, until maybe I was in college, actually their political beliefs were. So I can certainly see how that would not only confuse your generation and get them much more divided, but also just continue to divide us out as a society. Because if all of a sudden you came home and your parents were very conservative and you start talking about what happened, that's just going to get them angry at school. And instead of the teachers and the parents working together to give you the best possible future you can have, now you have adversity there. So there's just in my mind no good direction that brings for us by doing what they did.
There's no real good direction. And also, a lot of the time in these discussions, you have to realize that it's delivered, the framing in which a lot of these teachers will talk about how evil Trump is, or LGBTQ rights, or whatever social justice topic that you want to talk about. And they frame it as, you're the future, you're going to change America. That's always, it's a theme that always happens in all of these town halls, all of these conversations, right? You bash Trump for 30 minutes. You let students not talk about policy, not understand how a bill get passed or how the electoral college works, but just that the electoral college is bad because Wyoming has more of a say than California. Like, they say that the electoral college is bad because XYZ. Sorry, I don't want to get into all the details about the electoral college, but the electoral college is bad for XYZ. But wait, you will change the future. You're young, and when you're older, you can do something about it. And again, is that subtle messaging that lends itself to more overt messaging, I would say, in college, where you have very overt social justice advocacy courses and professors. So I've heard students tell me, my fellow friends tell me that sometimes professors offer extra credit to students for participating in protests.
See, that just is amazing to me. And like the electoral college, while they say that, and not to get into the weeds there, but I'm in Wisconsin right now and a much smaller area than you are in New York City. So when they say that my vote counts more, there's logic behind what they're saying. But at the same time, if the Electoral College wasn't there, then my vote wouldn't matter at all. So because politicians would only go to the big cities because that's where they're going to win the elections. So there is interesting topics on there, and I don't need to get too far into the weeds there, but it is interesting to me that they would bring that up constantly to you guys, because that's something that unless you're in a politics class, it's like that doesn't need to be subtly brought up over and over and over again. Teach math if you're a math teacher, kind of thing. I guess I'm getting off on a tangent, but I do want to talk a little bit. So the other thing you brought up is that it wasn't just you. So like you brought up a Jamal Jackson and a Kayla Hunt, who had very similar experiences in different schools after the Trump election. So it wasn't just like a unique thing to your school. I find that very interesting.
Yes, 100%. I decided my experience is not enough. I can't just share my own anecdotal experience and say, well, this is a reality that Gen Zers are living in. But also statistics does not put a humane factor into it. And so I decided to speak to other fellow Gen Zers around the age of 20. And Jamal Jackson, when he told me the story of when Donald Trump got elected into office, it was identical to mine. And I made sure to note that fact within the op-ed, that during, like, that day is a day so many of us can remember because we knew what the reaction was at our schools. The reactions of teachers and administrators at the schools, whether you were in middle school at the time, I believe Jamal was in high school. I think he was in the 10th grade. Their reaction is the reason why we remember that day, even though for a student, it's just a random day. It should be a random day in middle or high school. But with Jamal, same exact experience. And he also talked about this race and politics course that he takes in college, or that he took in college at the University of Chicago. And just like in the op-ed, he was mentioning how the professor was asking, well, where were you when Trump got elected? How did you feel? What was your reaction? But in a tone that it was a brilliant quote from Jamal. It was as if it was 9/11. And we were saying, where were you when the Twin Towers crashed? And it's a perfect analogy for that experience, that specific experience. And Kayla Hunt too. She talked about the time when Donald Trump got elected and she was in school. And for the sake of repetition, I can't just put in that same day again and again. But I mean, talking to her, she had the same experience. And also in college, just like how Jamal took that race and politics course and he's dealing with divisive rhetoric about Trump in college. I mean, Kayla is dealing with professors giving extra credit to students to go protest. And we saw the magnitude of some of these protests last year, and they're continuing this academic year as well. But that just all goes to show how pervasive this ideology is, or like the rhetoric and the ideology is in classrooms. The place that we spend 8 hours a day when you're in middle and high school, and the place that you spend every day there, 24 hours a day there in college.
And you also talked about how this has also had side effects, because you talked about now your generation is dealing with a lot of online harassment, and it's coming from your peers that have gone through this. For me, when you say that, not to backtrack for a second, but when you say that, I mean, the day after the Donald Trump election for me was just a Wednesday, and I don't remember anything about it. So for you guys to look at that as a 9/11 kind of event it just speaks to how much that they made that as a big thing. But certainly some of your peers must have taken that to an extreme, because you'd said in here that you guys are now dealing with a lot of online harassment from your peers about different topics that are important to them, even if you're not into politics. And you said it's not a lot of them. It's just, but a small amount can really get to people In fact, you said that 2/3 of Americans under 30 have experienced political harassment online. So how is that really affecting your generation, dealing with that every day?
Well, for those who are my age, most of your world is your social network, is your friends, and they help you with everything between sharing notes in class to get invited to a party to just hanging out on a normal Wednesday. And when you have such a divisive culture like this, some people really do believe if you do not share the same political views as them, then you cannot only you can't only not be their friend, but you're actually a horrible person. And so that just takes another dimension when you bring it online, right? And so for a lot of my friends, they don't post political things online. They don't post anything remotely political because they know that most people, most of their friend group won't care, but it only just takes one person who really takes it personal. Remember, the political is personal for a lot of those who are a bit radical on the left. And I mean, so it just takes one post to lose their friend group, to lose their friend groups. Sorry.
Well, that
I don't want to ramble on more
perfectly right there.
Yeah,
that hits it perfectly because for your generation or any generation at your age, that friend group is essential. That is your world. And so I can certainly see like the fear of posting the wrong thing or being connected to the wrong group. And it really is interesting because you had said that for my generation, I can remember days when I could just have a political conversation with somebody completely opposite of me and we could just sit around a fire and do it and there was no problem. But for your generation, like you've completely grown up where we've been so divided that those kind of conversations are very difficult to do. So
yes,
I can certainly
100%.
see the fear too of losing friends just because of those conversations.
And it's gotten worse. And it's gotten worse. It really peaked during the Black Lives Matter riots back in 2020. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that remotely enough. I mean, I remember the black squares on Instagram. And if you didn't post a black square, then what? You don't believe that Black Lives Matter? And I've had friends who got bullied online because they didn't post a black square. Not because they're a conservative or anything. I grew up in New York City. Everyone is a liberal in New York City. And so they just didn't care. They didn't post it. And yet they received harassment from those who were insistent that if you do not follow the mob online, that you're evil. And it's easier to do online because you can't say the nasty things that, that I've heard in person, but it's way easier online.
Sure. And in that situation, you can't even avoid it. You can't hide from it because they can just look at your profile, whether you're saying something or not. So that adds just a whole new element to it. You concluded your piece by saying that our leaders have failed to curb the radical rhetoric in our schools, to teach our generation about that politics and conversation is impolite, which is something that was pounded into our heads, and to address that your fellow Gen Zers cries for help from a battle of. Oh, sorry. Let me say that again. And to address your fellow Gen Zers cries for help as they battle mental health crisis, their mental health crises. So I just wanted to hear from you, like, how do you see us moving forward with that? Because they've certainly failed you there. How do we move forward with your generation and find a better place to get beyond this division and this polarization? How do we move your generation and all of our country back into a more healthier situation?
I think we need to call it out. I really do believe that we don't give, sometimes we do, we blast Generation Z a lot of the times, and a lot of the time for good reason, as a Gen Zer myself. Most of the Gen Zers I know, most of my friends are Gen Zers, most of them don't care. Most of them don't care about politics. Most of them just want to hang out with their friends and just go about their day, finish college and get on with life, right? But there's a small sliver of the generation they've been indoctrinated. Again, that same like we said earlier in our conversation, that conversation, that politically charged conversation mixed in with this, you're going to change the world, you're a snowflake, you're precious, you're different, you're going to change the world. And so when you are finally an adult, everything is going to be the way you want it, as long as you put your mind to it. That's, and sidebar here, that's not inherently a bad message at all. Like you should be able to want to get the stuff done that you want in life. But when that wish list that you want to check off and get those things done are just a radical left wish list, then that's when the problem starts. And so I think we need to start calling out those in my generation who have been indoctrinated. We need to tell them that, you know what, I'm just not going to give you any oxygen, because the more oxygen we give you, the more you react. And that's what we saw last year with the protests. And so we call them out, stop giving them oxygen. And I think after a while, people realize that, okay, my wish list shouldn't be the wish list of radical professors in my classroom. It should be what I actually want to get done personally in life. And so I think we need to call them out, stop giving them oxygen. And I think I'll solve most of the issues.
And I do believe that.
On there.
No, that's fine. I do believe also that once you get beyond college, you get a job, you get into your profession and your career, and you start hitting those goals and going after those goals. A lot of those things that you're talking about do tend to work themselves out. Those politics become less at the front of your mind and family and career and things like that. So that some of that will be natural, but yeah, I think calling out, having your peers calling out to them and just saying, look, you can be passionate about that, but I'm not, and standing firm on that I think that could move us in a healthier direction. So awesome. I have one last question for you. It's something I ask everybody. So if you had the chance to make one change, say you're president with all the power, or you're king for the day, and you can make one change to move us closer to liberty or open people's eyes to liberty, what is something you would do?
I think the biggest thing is probably implement school choice, or reform the education system in some sort of meaningful way. I'm the beneficiary of school choice. Me personally, my mother made the most important decision, the most consequential decision that will forever change my life. And it was enroll me in a charter school in first grade. I was in a charter school from first to eighth grade. That gave me the skills, the reading and writing skills, the math skills to get me into a specialized high school. So that's another different special type of school. And now I'm at Syracuse University and I'm writing op-eds and I'm here with you having a conversation. I think the most important thing is school choice, giving parents and children the option to go to a school that's actually effective. And it's disappointing to see some of the literacy rates that's going on in Chicago and in Baltimore and even my own city, New York City. And all it takes is a proper education up until high school that we don't talk about it enough. It must be addressed. I know this election cycle is all about immigration and the economy, which are two really important topics. Don't get me wrong. But at some point, we need to tell ourselves, why are we failing our kids? My life could have been in a completely different place if my mother didn't enroll me in a charter school. And I'm so grateful for doing so, for enrolling me there. So I would definitely allow charter schools to expand in America if I had presidential power for one day.
We'll get you to the conclusion of this interview and the beginning of Dumb Bleep of the Week coming right up on Liberty at Night.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government, the real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
We're expecting Milton to be a dangerous, large, powerful hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida, and it's going to bring multiple life-threatening hazards.
The director of America's National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan, warning that Hurricane Milton, gathering force in the Gulf of Mexico, is poised to be a once-in-a-century storm. It's already resulted in US President Joe Biden cancelling a planned trip to Germany later this week, where he was due to meet Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. The president says he needs to stay in Washington to deal with the emergency created by Milton. With more on the storm, FSN's Mitch McCann.
Milton was registered as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday morning and is expected to hit Tampa late Wednesday local time as a Category 3. Residents have been warned to evacuate areas likely to be affected, and at least 9 counties have now made mandatory evacuation orders. Tampa's Mayor, Jane Castor, has issued a dire warning, saying if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Miami-Dade remains under a state of emergency ahead of the storm making landfall. Mayor Daniela Levine Carver is urging local residents to heed warnings about the storm's power.
Please make sure you have 3 days of supplies, non-perishable food and water, that they would be on hand for every member of your household.
In other news, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and his warnings about the horrific impacts of escalation are being ignored. The Secretary-General has called for an immediate ceasefire both in Gaza and Lebanon. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Jody Jacobs reports.
Antonio Guterres has once again voiced his concern over the escalating violence in the Middle East. Guterres has described the situation in Lebanon as boiling over.
Every airstrike, every missile launch, every rocket fired pushes peace further out of reach.
The Secretary-General has questioned the disregard for international law, saying there is something fundamentally wrong in the way this war is being conducted. He says civilians must be protected and their essential needs must be met, including through humanitarian assistance.
The head of the British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia wants to create sustained mayhem on British and European soil. Ken McCullum said Russian operatives are acting increasingly recklessly in Britain since the war in Ukraine got underway. The so-called godfather of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, has shared the Nobel Prize for Physics with another scientist, John Hopfield of Princeton University. Mr. Hinton quit Google last year, warning that he was concerned that the technology he had helped create poses dangers to society. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie. Before we went to the break, we were in the middle of this interview between our new guy, Josh Martins, and Daniel Evrens, who had an article published by the New York Post. Let's get to the conclusion of that interview.
As a libertarian, I would love to see no public schools and see all private schools. As a realist, I know that that's not going to happen anytime soon. But school choice, I think, is very, very important in our country. And I think that when you look at the local levels, we're seeing a lot of local candidates winning a lot of elections that are standing on school choice, especially since the pandemic. I have 2 special needs kids. The listeners have heard me babble about that too many times already, but I have 2 special needs kids, and one of them goes to a program about 30 miles away from my house. And it wouldn't be possible without school choice. It's not exactly the same thing, but he gets to go up to this program. We homeschool him, and then he gets to go to this program. And this program has opened up his ability to actually communicate for the first time in his 18 years. And if we would not have been able to homeschool him and then get him into this program, it would not have been possible because the public school just did not have the programs that he needed to open up his communication. And so many children are so unique and that you can't just fit them all into that one bubble. So having school choice where your parents are empowered to move you to a program that's going to make you excel is so important to our youth and should be top priority for our country. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, 100%. Just to add one more point. Again, yes, America's children are unique. We don't all fit in one box. We should prioritize and reward schools that are prioritizing excellence, right? Which is what charter schools prioritize. At least in New York City, I know that children in the inner city in New York City score as well in certain like English and math tests as children who are more affluent in the suburbs in like Long Island and like the suburbs around New York City. And that's very important. And we need to reward schools who decide to make children excellent. And lastly, with all this indoctrination, I mean, this whole conversation has been about divisive rhetoric in a classroom. Parents should have the choice to say, you know what? This school is indoctrinating my kid and I want to homeschool them. I want to move them to this school. And that does not talk about politics at all and focuses on ABCs and 1, 2, 3s.
Exactly. I've often said, again, as a libertarian, I'd love to see the whole public school thing go away and not have the state being involved in it. But if the state is going to spend the amount of money they spend on it, I would love to see where that money is tied to the student and the parents have the ability to send that student with the money to wherever that student's going to excel the best. Just give all the options they can to the parents and empower them to bring about a very well-educated next generation that will probably take me right out of the workplace and I'll be smiling when it happens. Yeah, excellent. Tell all the listeners where they can find more of your stuff.
Yeah, I'm a Campus Reform correspondent, so you can find me on Campus Reform. I'm also a Young Voices contributor. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, Daniel Lee Friends. Last name is a bit tricky. It is IDFRESNE. Yeah, you can find me all over there. And stay tuned for some more op-eds and some more articles. I love to write, so that's exactly what I'll do.
Well, big thanks to Josh Martins for doing this interview with Daniel, talking about Gen Z and things going on in politics. Make sure you follow Josh's podcast, which is Martin's Minute. We recently brought him in to do some interviews for Good Morning Liberty, and he's been putting out episodes every Sunday on our podcast channel. By the way, that podcast channel is Good Morning Liberty, 1,375 episodes. Find it on your favorite podcast app. Watch the videos on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and of course, listen on your favorite podcast app. It's time now to get into Dumb Bleep of the Week. Now, if you're not a member of the Fed Haters Club, that's okay, even though you should be. You can go to joingml.com, joingml.com, and that'll take you to our private Discord channel. It's as little as $7 a month if you want to join. Help out with the funding of the show, the advertising that we run, keep the lights on, keep the cameras going, stuff like that. And also, you get to throw in submissions for Dumb Bleep of the Week. What is that? Well, they throw in the submissions. We put the list together, about 10 items every week, and people vote. And it just happens to be our most popular episode every single week. There's nothing we can do about that. People like the dumb. They want more dumb. Okay?
That seems to be what goes viral on Twitter.
That is the thing. Anytime we can talk about dumb things, that's how you can do it. The live group throws in submissions. They also go by the name the Fed Haters Club, which you can join by going to joingml.com. I throw in a bunch of submissions as well. People on Twitter or X also tag us in stuff, but I'll tell you, that's great. It gets a little bit lower priority because there are people who are paying for our time over here. So you want to go to joingml.com for that kind of high priority treatment.
That's right.
You want to do that. At the end of the episode, we will vote. The Fed Haters Club will vote, and then we'll decide who wins Dumb Bleep of the Week. Charlie.
And Nate has been keeping track this year because we do Dumb Bleep of the Year. So Nate has been keeping track of all the winners and putting them in a bracket to prepare for Dumb Bleep of the Year at the end of the year, coming up in just a couple months.
Yes, I have been doing that.
Yeah.
I did do that. I did do that
up until March or April.
About almost May.
Almost May.
But
So
maybe
April.
the beginning of May.
Hey.
Potentially.
So
I think I remembered to do it once in June.
Well, hey, look, you got almost the first 2 quarters done.
You know what's funny is I thought about that on the way here. I was like, I really need to open up that Excel spreadsheet and put down who wins today, because that's one less time I'm going to have to listen through the episode and figure out exactly who won, so I can then take that clip and then put it together for Dumb Bleep of the Year.
I say all that to say we do Dumb Bleep of the Year for those that don't know.
We do.
So we find the dumbest. We'll find the dumbest thing for 2024.
We will. That is for sure going to happen. All right, let's get going. We got 9 submissions today. Some of them should be pretty quick and easy, like this one, which we already talked about at length yesterday, so we won't spend a ton of time on it. I even cut this clip from yesterday into a video and put it out on X for all the people to see. And both of them liked it a lot. And so let's go through the big thing that was going on yesterday, which is Make Them Riot. That's what Dumb Bleep number 1 is called, Make Them Riot. This was the talking point. Republicans against Trump pretty much sums up this talking point. Trump and his people encouraged the violent attack on the Capitol. So remember, that is supposed to mean make them riot in reference to January 6th and the insurrection that occurred on January 6th.
This is the proof we needed.
It is. We talked about Tristan Snell, who lies a lot, like a bunch. So much so that he tweeted this. He said, make them riot, Trump said. He gave the order to attack the Capitol. Anyone who orders an attack on the government is 100% unfit to serve in the government. This one actually got a community note, visible. So he deleted this post and fixed the problem by posting a new post where he said the same thing over again. In fact, he made up an entire string of events when he reposted this afterwards. Tristan, here's an aide, says there will be violence if we keep doing this. That's not. It's like there's no quotes. You see how there's no quotes around that? Because there's no quotes. And then it says, Trump, make them riot, do it. Literally wasn't Trump who said that. Aide, we don't have evidence of voter fraud. No quotes around that. He's making up a script right now. Trump, the details don't matter. Aide, VP Pence has been moved to a secure location. Trump, so what? They do actually have Trump saying, so what, after he was told that VP Pence had been moved to a secure location. I would like to hear the how he emphasized that. I think it'd be like, so what?
Right.
Do we do now?
Yeah.
You know, so technically he said, so what? But anyhow, that's not the point. The point is,
could have said, so what?
Yeah, that's what people are saying. Like, VP Pence is on the run for his life, and Trump's like, so what? And he cracks open a Diet Coke and chugs it real quick.
Yeah.
Crushes the can on his head and
As he
throws
had
it behind
bullets
his
flying by his ear. You know?
So there's so many
Might
lies.
as well bring in the assassination attempt
Might as well.
during this time.
There's so many lies wrapped up inside of this. Number one, it was a aide who said, make them riot, do it. Number two, it happened on November 4th, not on January 6th. And so when they tie this, I mean, he literally deleted the post that had a community note shown on it and then posted this and put it like it was a string of events that happened in rapid succession, like a conversation. But this one has to do with January 6th down here at the bottom. This one had to do with November 4th, and Trump didn't say it. This one, sorry, right there. Anyhow, that's dumb bleep number one.
You know, maybe there is a problem with capitalism whenever you can just, you know, get 1 million views on a post like that and increase the capital coming in just by making stuff up.
There's incentive to post whatever is going to get the most interaction. And I think X did a good thing coming up with community notes, although I personally believe community notes has been corrupted. There's a lot of proposed community notes on like every post. You rarely see an actual visible community note. You still see them, but a little less than you used to. And if you are someone who can write community notes like we are, you can see that the community notes section is filled up with just comments from people, like, you know, opinion and speculation and stuff like that. And so it's kind of been corrupted. But I think that's a good idea overall.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you do. You don't want to.
How does one actually become visible? Has to be
It's got to get
corroborated
enough.
enough?
It's got to get enough ratings, like high ratings, and it has to get ratings from. I don't know how they decide what side of the aisle someone comes down on or whatever, but it has to get enough ratings from people who typically disagree with like what your stance is. So it's made to be bipartisan community notes essentially, and I think that system is kind of broken down a little bit. So that's dumb bleep number 1. Let's go to dumb bleep number 2. We had Lewandowski, I think Corey Lewandowski is his name. He is explaining to this anchor on CNN this information that came out, I believe, last weekend about the amount of murderers and rapists and criminals that have been let into the country and that are not detained right now, illegal immigrants, that is, that have been let into the country that are not detained right now. And the total number was somewhere around like 400,000 criminals and 13,000 murders, 16,000 rapists. I don't know if those are separate people or if they're murder and rape or whatever, but anyhow, there's a number of them. So he's talking about this, and the journalist, he's not a journalist, he's an anchor. The anchor's very concerned about how Lewandowski pronounced Kamala's name.
You know what I can say, Jim? I can say that 13,099 murderers were let into this country, 16,000 rapists, 425,000 people in the last 4 years have been let into this country by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's own Customs and Border Protection that are running around this country, Jim.
The other thing, too, it's Kamala Harris. I don't know. Why do you guys say Kamala? That is, it's Kamala Harris.
Jim, we know that they're committing crimes against Americans. Why can't these individuals talk about the individuals who've been killed by illegal immigrants? 13,099 murderers have been let into this country by this administration's own accounting, and you guys don't want to talk about it.
Out of all of that.
You said Kamala, so, I mean, there's really no point in talking about any of this stuff.
I honestly can't hear a difference. Kamala.
How do you not hear a difference? I don't understand.
Kamala and...
Like, if I say the word emphasis, are you like, well, I don't hear a difference?
No, I hear a difference on that one, yeah.
That's all it is.
But Kamala and...
Kamala.
So gay.
Yeah.
It's gay. It's gay.
The point
Kamala.
It shouldn't matter. It's a normal... people put a different emphasis on different syllables in all sorts of situations, but for some reason they've fixated on this one. They've decided that you're like racist if you say it wrong, and this is essentially like dead naming Kamala or something when you're on here talking about it, and they won't even talk about the substance.
There's two
of
M's.
The argument.
Kamala.
Yeah, it's got to be 2 M's. Yeah,
Kamala.
That's what it is.
Kamala.
The B is silent.
Okay,
just so you know. Kamabla. Is he still doing that? Kamabla?
So everything he said, he points out the fact that he pronounced Kamala's name wrong.
Kamala's name wrong. It's Kamala.
Kamala. Whatever.
That's dumb bleep.
Miss Harris.
Kamila.
How about that?
There you go. Think of Kamila. Okay, you wouldn't say Camila. It's Kamila, but just say Kamala instead if you wanted to pronounce it without someone being annoying afterwards. All right, let's do dumb bleep number 3. Actually, forgot to put a number on this one. This is not, I know you see Josh Eckel here at the top, but he's not the dumb.
Oh.
There could be conservatives or Republicans that are listening right now that might get upset. Maybe even people in the group that aren't going to like this one. But I'm going to agree with the overall sentiment of this dumb. Personally, I don't think that schools should require people to have things like learning Bibles in your public school classroom. That's not because I think that there is a separation of church and state that's in the Constitution somehow, because I know that there isn't a separation. You can't, what's the wording in the First Amendment about religion? Do you remember exactly how it's worded? Someone want to tell me?
Oh, in the First Amendment?
Yeah.
That Congress shall not
establish. Yes, that's the word. Okay, so I don't like the idea of public schools specifically picking out something like a Bible, because the same people would not like the public schools picking out other people's version of the Bible and putting it in the classrooms either. I think that it's good to keep those things separated. And I think that public schools suck at teaching everything, almost, except for my mom, who was the best teacher in the history of the entire world. We both agree with that.
Yeah.
But almost everyone else sucks. And so why the actual F would you want these people to be showing your kids the Bible when that's your freaking job, parents? They should get that from you, not from their public school teachers. That's why I don't like it, because it's a really dumb idea to put that in the hands of the state also. And then what Oklahoma is doing is also ridiculous. Charlie, if you want to explain what's happening here.
So the Oklahoma State Department of Education under Ryan Walters has put out a bid to buy 55,000 Bibles for public schools. The description of the purchase order is almost word for word a description of the Trump Bible. Millions in school money going to Trump. What is the Trump Bible?
Trump has a Bible that he sells.
He does?
Yeah.
Does he really?
Yeah.
This is
$60 endorsed by Donald Trump.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Trump Bible. It's questionable. I'll just say it's questionable. Okay. Especially given the fact, after the first assassination attempt, many of his comments were, I think I believe in God now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even sure.
All right.
But he will sell you a $60 Bible.
Scope and description. The bid response. So this is for suppliers. For the specifications of the Bible. The supplier must provide 55,000 Bibles with shipping included to each school district and with a 2-week delivery time after contract award date. That's a lot slower than Amazon Prime.
It is, but it's 55K.
That's true. The supplier must provide only the King James Version Bible for historical accuracy and contain both the Old and New Testaments. The supplier's Bible must include copies of the United States Pledge of Allegiance, the U.S. Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the U.S. Bill of Rights.
So this is where some of the qualifications come in that they're upset with, because there's not a ton of Bibles that specifically include the Pledge of Allegiance, which is a socialist BS piece of crap that people
Bible
should not
does?
say. Yes. The Declaration of Independence, of course, and the U.S. Constitution, and the U.S. Bill of Rights, which I would assume would be included with the U.S. Constitution, but hey, who knows? And so what they're saying is they have narrowed this down to include what only a couple people offer, and Trump's the cheapest one. And so they have to go with that bid because it's the cheapest one.
Including the supplier's Bible must be bound in leather or leather-like material for durability.
Mm-hmm.
Durability. So,
okay. Yeah. So they basically narrowed it down to the Trump Bible.
What is that? What is that math, real quick? 30 million?
It's 3.3 million.
3.3 million?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a news story about it. They essentially say that their publisher, the person that they order the books from, only has 2 Bibles that fit this description. One of them is 60, that's a Trump Bible, and the other one is 90. And so to be able to fit this criteria, they're going to have to order 55,000 Bibles from Donald Trump, which proceeds of which are going to go to his campaign. And it's going to be...
It looks like it's Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA Bible, though, but
yeah.
that's endorsed by President Donald Trump.
Trump receives fees for his endorsement off of that Bible. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's got like a licensing fee on the Bible. So anyhow, I do think that this is dumb. Okay. Yeah. I think that this is clearly designed for the public school system to buy 55,000 Bibles from Lee Greenwood's Bible endorsed by Donald Trump, money going to Donald Trump. Number one, I don't think they ought to be buying the Bibles. That's $3 million for them to buy the Bibles. I don't think the state should have anything to do with teaching your kids about anything having to do with religion. I think they should probably figure out how to teach your kids math and reading, and maybe use the Bible for reading. I don't know. Maybe you could help with that. That
could do some history.
History,
some actual historical
also,
events.
But I would like the state to do a good job doing basic things, and not expanding out to a specific religion. So anyhow, that's Dumb-Bleep number 3. How about a video for number 4?
All right.
This is a video. This is either real or it's just a Kamala ad with an actor, and either way it's dumb. Just so you know, but this is a guy, Charlie, he's just like me and you.
He's getting paid.
He's probably getting paid.
For sure. Yeah.
He's just like me. I mean, look at that. He's wearing a Red Rocks Amphitheater trucker hat. It's a pretty cool looking hat. I like that hat. Okay. And he is a small government man. All right.
What is that? What organization shirt is that?
I don't know.
Is that the what do you call it? What's those groups? They're in those little go-karts for parades.
Oh, like the Shriners?
The Shriners? Is that the Shriners logo?
I don't know. I mean, he's not wearing the hat.
No,
he's wearing
not.
a Red Rocks hat, so I don't know. Okay, let's see what this guy has. We should consider the message, because this guy's just like us.
I believe in small government, low taxes, and stay out of my life. I am a Republican. I voted for Donald Trump, and I went to his inauguration in 2016. We tried it for 4 years. It just didn't work. All these billionaires are coming out of the woodwork to support Trump. Well, no they want their tax breaks on the backs of the middle class. What I'm looking for in a president is people like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I think she's going to do a great job for people like me.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
This guy plays bags. He grills.
Cornhole. Yeah.
He wears trucker hats. He's like small government and low taxes.
He's a regular, everyday, normal mother.
He is. And Donald Trump's got these billionaires coming out of the woodwork to support him. Now, what's funny is the Harris pages keep bragging about the fact that I think 99 out of the 100 Fortune top 100 CEOs endorse Kamala Harris. And she's got the endorsement of like most of the rich people, but somehow the billionaires are coming out of the woodwork to support Trump. I mean, but the billionaires that support Kamala, like Mark Cuban and almost all of them,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
That's totally fine. He wants
this guy's totally believable.
Yeah, for sure. Small government, low taxes, but he's mad about billionaires getting their tax breaks on the backs of the middle class because that's how it works. So you should steal more money from the rich people. Whatever. They can have him. If he's even a real person. I don't know. Do you think he's a real person or do you think he's just an actor?
That's an actor.
I mean, actors are real people. I'm saying is it a real story? No. Is my question.
Not a real story.
We've probably true. Probably not even real at all. Just an ad. But we've got almost an hour left of Don't Bleep of the Week. Of course, ending with the conclusion and the vote, and we will tell you who wins Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live Network. Coming right back.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
We're expecting Milton to be a dangerous, large, powerful hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida, and it's going to bring multiple life-threatening hazards.
The director of America's National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan, warning that Hurricane Milton, gathering force in the Gulf of Mexico, is poised to be a once-in-a-century storm. It's already resulted in U.S. President Joe Biden cancelling a planned trip to Germany later this week, where he was due to meet Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. The president says he needs to stay in Washington to deal with the emergency created by Milton. With more on the storm, FSN's Mitch McCann.
Milton was registered as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday morning and is expected to hit Tampa late Wednesday local time as a Category 3. Residents have been warned to evacuate areas likely to be affected, and at least 9 counties have now made mandatory evacuation orders. Tampa's Mayor, Jane Castor, has issued a dire warning, saying if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Miami-Dade remains under a state of emergency ahead of the storm making landfall. Mayor Daniela Levine Carver is urging local residents to heed warnings about the storm's power.
Please make sure you have 3 days of supplies, non-perishable food and water, that they would be on hand for every member of your household.
In other news, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and his warnings about the horrific impacts of escalation are being ignored. The Secretary-General has called for an immediate ceasefire both in Gaza and Lebanon. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Jody Jacobs reports.
Antonio Guterres has once again voiced his concern over the escalating violence in the Middle East. Guterres has described the situation in Lebanon as boiling over.
Every airstrike, every missile launch, every rocket fired pushes peace further out of reach.
The Secretary-General has questioned the disregard for international law, saying there is something fundamentally wrong in the way this war is being conducted. He says civilians must be protected and their essential needs must be met, including through humanitarian assistance.
The head of the British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia wants to create sustained mayhem on British and European soil. Ken McCullum said Russian operatives are acting increasingly recklessly in Britain since the war in Ukraine got underway. The so-called godfather of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, has shared the Nobel Prize for Physics with another scientist, John Hopfield of Princeton University. Mr. Hinton quit Google last year, warning that he was concerned that the technology he had helped create poses dangers to society. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, 1 year on from the Hamas attacks on Israel, what is the future for any kind of negotiated settlement that leads to the creation of a two-state solution, Israel and a sovereign Palestinian state coexisting side by side? Matt Fry, presenter and correspondent with the UK's Channel 4 News, is on special assignment in Israel this week and says it's hard to overstate how much ground has been lost diplomatically over the course of the last violent and agonizing 12 months.
Saudi Arabia was pretty close to striking a bilateral deal with Israel before October the 7th. And one of the reasons why October the 7th is thought to have happened is basically Iran through its proxies in Hamas saying you can't do a deal over the heads of the Palestinian people. If anything good can come out of this appalling year, it is to try and fashion some kind of peace deal which involves the recognition of an independent, sovereign, viable Palestinian state. Israeli public opinion and Israeli voters, they're not there. if you speak to the remnants of Hamas, they are not there. They believe in a one-state solution with no Israel. And there are many Israelis who believe in a one-state solution, which involves the Palestinians living here as second-class citizens or not at all.
And so the conflict enters a second year with very little optimism, with Lebanon, Hezbollah, Iran and the Houthis in Yemen all now fully involved in growing regional instability. The main news again, as Hurricane Milton bears down on Florida, US President Joe Biden has cancelled a scheduled trip to Germany and Angola, saying he needs to stay in the US to deal with the storm. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and the head of British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia is aiming to create sustained mayhem on European soil. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Following reports of a newly posted job listing at area marketing firm Swenson Digital, The Onion spoke to a few of the 1,400 applicants who claim they are, quote, absolutely perfect for this position.
When I first saw this opening, I knew it was right for me. I've got tons of experience. I've got all the skills they're looking for.
If you look at my resume, I've got everything they're looking for. I mean, I've held similar jobs like this in the past. I'm extremely driven. I really think this is going to work out.
I've got a BA in marketing, which the posting said was recommended, so I think that'll bode really well for me. I've had plenty of team experience, and I think that would stand out. Not to mention the fact that I'm great with
web design and HTML, and pretty proficient with Excel and PowerPoint. Also, I think the culture is
very me, you know? I think I'd fit in well with the other employees. I also think I had a great
resume and cover letter. I think as soon as they interview me, they'll see I'm the perfect candidate.
As of this video's release, Swenson Digital had extended a job offer to an applicant who happens to be a friend of the boss's son.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome back to the top of the hour. We're in the middle of Dumb Bleep of the Week. Make sure you follow us on all of your favorite podcast apps under the name Good Morning Liberty. Right now, we are Liberty at Night. Every single day, we are Good Morning Liberty. Like us, you guys are probably concerned that your privacy is being attacked by people on the radical left. The deep state's invading individuals' private messages and targeting them based on their political affiliation. That's why we've partnered with Freedom Chat, a private social messaging app that believes privacy is a fundamental human right. Freedom Chat offers true end-to-end encryption, built-in screenshot protection to ensure that no one can screenshot your conversations, no storage of messages on their servers, and no commercial use of user data. This is the app that we trust, and it's the app that we rely on, especially as we approach the election. Some people will stop at nothing to maintain power, making privacy protection more important than ever. You can download the app right now by going to freedomchat.com/GML. We're such a fan of Freedom Chat that we've created our own private channel, which you can subscribe to for exclusive content, including never-before-seen images, videos, and posts. Simply download the app, search for our channel, Good Morning Liberty, and subscribe. No one can see the channels you're subscribed to or the posts you react to. It's your own private news feed. And if you're on Android, you can subscribe to their wait list by going to freedomchat.com/GML. Speak freely and message privately with Freedom Chat. Again, download the app today and subscribe to our channel at Good Morning Liberty for exclusive posts and never before seen content. That's freedomchat.com/GML. Elizabeth Warren had a dumb post yesterday, and this is the one I actually expanded on the most because I promise you I'm going to get to the punchline of how this is going to affect your life. Okay? It's going to have to do with price gouging and price controls. But she's mad about this grocery store called Stop and Shop, which we don't have around here, but they're elsewhere in America, okay? She says, right now, shoppers in Jamaica Plain are paying 30% off for this 30% for the star is still in ad mode right there. Are paying 30% for the same frozen pizza as shoppers in Dedham or Dedham, however you want to say it. That's just not right.
30% more, 30% less?
It's 30% more. She didn't put that. They're paying 30% more for the same frozen pizza as shoppers in Dedham. That's just not right. I'm pressing Stop and Shop on how they set prices because we've got to make sure big companies aren't ripping families off. And what we have here is a story that, thank God, I've read about this about 15 times now in basic economics, where you have a lower income neighborhood and the store is actually charging higher prices on some of the goods in that neighborhood. And the inference here is that somehow they're price gouging lower income people when they go to the grocery store or the shop, which when you just think about business tactics and you take all of the other factors out of there,
that's stupid.
It makes no sense whatsoever. No. That literally makes no sense. Okay. And the higher income neighborhoods, you could probably get away with charging more in those areas than you could in the lower income neighborhoods if all things are equal, but they're not all equal. Well, let me tell you about this story a little bit. A study found that some Stop and Shop locations in Massachusetts charge higher prices in areas with lower median income, and now state lawmakers are demanding answers about a company's practices. Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, Jim McGovern, and Ayanna Pressley sent a 4-page, strongly worded letter to Stop and Shop leaders after a group of teen volunteers from the Hyde Square Task Force found that there are price discrepancies at different store locations. Can you believe such a thing? Raising concerns about price gouging. The study, the results of which were first published last year, found that the grocer was charging more in urban neighborhoods than their suburban counterparts. Stop and Shop could be engaging in corporate profiteering schemes that squeeze residents and families in Massachusetts, said Warren, who pressed for details on what is impacting the price differences and what the company is doing about it. Now, this is a person who wants to control every aspect of your life, Elizabeth Warren, okay? And she's either lying or she has absolutely no grasp of basic economic concepts whatsoever. I don't think that Elizabeth Warren is a complete idiot, but you can come up with a list of reasons why things might cost more at this other grocery store very quickly. Very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about the lease payments are higher, probably?
Well, it's closer to the city center. Yeah. So they could potentially have higher prices, but that's not the only reason. They talk about different products that
I can explain what happens right here in Williamson County.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go to Franklin, like the city of Franklin, everything is more expensive there.
Yeah.
Gas is usually 30 to 50 cents more per gallon.
Yeah.
Okay. Grocery store prices are higher. The reason being is that Franklin City has a special tax. The city of Franklin adds a special tax for the school district. Of course, it's for the kids outside of Williamson County. So your property taxes are higher. They have a special sales tax. Everything in Franklin is more expensive.
The land is more valuable itself, meaning that the land see, I heard someone the other day, they were like, I saw the gas in Franklin and it was like almost $1 more than it is at this gas station in Antioch. They're just doing that because that's where rich people are and they know they can get more money. Some.
Yes.
A little
partly,
bit. But also, how much more expensive is it to put a building on a plot of land in Franklin versus how expensive it is to put it on a plot of land in Antioch?
And pay extra taxes to the city.
That's likely not even the main reason in this scenario. They went through different products, by the way, and this is where it starts to get fuzzy because they picked their own specific products, okay? Meaning that just by doing that, you can create whatever narrative you want to create. Let's say a product is more popular in one area than it is in the other area. What if that means that store orders more of those products at that store? They probably get a bigger price break when they order more of that compared to when they have to order less of that specific product at another store, like turkey burgers being one of the things that they picked. Okay. Do you think turkey burgers are more popular in a affluent suburb of Boston, or are they more popular in a non-affluent, urban, different demographic area of Boston? Okay, so which one did they get the price break when they ordered more? There's a question right there. They don't go into any of those kinds of details, when they discussed these different products that they picked. Elizabeth Warren and the other 4 that wrote this letter did not go into any of those specific details.
Of course
it's
didn't.
just price gouging.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what happened. All right. Let me even show you these teens. Now, this is all Elizabeth Warren and these 4 other elected officials are just going off of this study that was conducted by these random teens that went around and picked out their own random groceries at these 2 grocery stores.
When you confirmed these suspicions,
it was kind of flabbergasting in a way, because, you kind of go grocery shopping and you're just like, did I pay like $2 for this the other day at this location? But then you're just like, oh, maybe I'm just like remembering something the wrong way. But when you actually compare the receipts side by side and you see that you're spending 18% more in your own local neighborhood, you're just like astonished and confused as to why the prices have been different at the same store.
As part of your investigation to find out why there's such a disparity in foods in different communities?
We have tried again and again to contact Stop and Shop and see why they market the way that they do. But unfortunately, due to several weeks and Stop Shop being a proprietary business.
All right, so you get the idea there. I'm going to...
Business.
Like that's going slow, kind of glitching out some. All right, let me get back to some of the facts. All right. The task force bought nearly identical grocery items at Stop and Shop locations in these 2 areas. They said that people would spend $34 more for the same grocery cart full of items. Of course, they picked the specific items. I'm going to tell you why this is really important here very, very soon, because right now it just sounds like I'm nitpicking something, but I'll tell you. Stop and Shop said that the Utes shopping list compared less than 1% of the 10,000 items sold at the stores in Jackson Square and Dedham, and that the overall price difference is less than the 21% the original study reported. The Utes' original study avoided items that were on sale to focus on items listed at regular price. However, Stop and Shop said in a statement that almost all of its sale items are equally priced across the entire chain. And then I'm going to show you this. What do you think this is, Charlie?
Oh, this is a map.
This is a map. You are correct.
Yeah.
This is a crime map.
Mm.
Green is good, and then going towards red is bad. Okay. Which location do you think this is?
That's Dedham.
That's Dedham.
Mm-hmm.
This is the more affluent, higher, median income community. Let me show you a different map of the Jamaica Plain store.
Mm.
This is the Jamaica Plain store. There you go. This is almost entirely red.
That's a map too.
It's also, yes.
Yeah.
It is also a map. These are crime maps. And almost the entire area around this store is in different shades of red. Almost the entire area around the Dedham store is in different shades of green. Moving to yellow, there is one little orange area over there around it on the map. So here's another thing that happens. What if you have higher crime? What if you have higher crime? What if you have higher theft at your grocery stores because of the higher? What if in a lower income neighborhood that is a higher crime neighborhood has more theft from the grocery store than the one that's in a higher income?
Same profit margin, you may have to up the prices.
You might have to raise the prices on certain things. What if you have to hire more security at your store? What if that's also a thing? Okay. There are so many different ways that explain why urban areas have higher price goods than suburban areas. So many different ways. But what these people have stuck on is that it is price gouging. And they say, thankfully, federal policymakers are honing in on this corporate malpractice. Just last month, Vice President Kamala Harris called for a federal ban on corporate price gouging on food and groceries, in addition to a bunch of other stuff. And so according to someone like Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey and whoever else it is, the Ayanna Pressley and McGovern was the other person in this. This is an example of corporate price gouging on a local level that the federal government is going to need to pay attention to and have laws that come in and fix. And all it is a simple fact that there are different expenses to go into running grocery stores in different areas. And this idea that they're not going to control prices, that they're just going to look after price gouging, is going to filter all the way down to basic economic facts about different locations that that the same grocery store chain might have, even in a given city. and not take into account the crime, stuff like that, this is price gouging.
Hey,
That's how far down this goes.
At least they're asking the different lease prices between Jamaica Plains and Dedham.
Mm-hmm.
So seems as if these senators or, government officials are asking for information.
A little bit of information, yeah. A little bit of that. Let's move on to Dumb Bleat number 6. Kind of a funny one here. This is Politico debate analysis. Very important stuff. Politico mag. I got a mag. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us the difference between their analysis of the different facial features between Vance and Walz.
Yes. Vance's beard matters, they say. Vance is the first White House wannabe to wear facial hair in 80 years. Research indicates that voters see beards as more masculine. That can be positive to some, but to others, especially women, it can be negative, conveying aggression and opposition to feminist ideals. Walz, on the other hand, Walz's wide eyes showed his passion. Eye-popping can sometimes be a sign of surprise, but for Walz, it simply revealed his emotional intensity, like during an exchange about abortion. The dynamic and emphatic facial motion grabs the viewer's attention. For Walz, it gave extra weight to his feelings and held our gaze.
I love how beards can convey aggression and opposition to feminist ideals for some women. I love it.
Josh said, prey-like expression. He does look like he's about to get murdered.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Okay, that's a quick and easy one for number 6. Number 7 is more complicated because it has to do with FEMA. The people that take care of us when there's a disaster from the U.S. government. And it's got to be nuanced here because the talking point right now is, number 1, FEMA's out of money. And of course, we just had a Hurricane Helene come through North Carolina. Terrible, terrible stuff going on. It's over 200 people now confirmed. And there's still hundreds, still a lot of people missing. Still a lot of people missing. So it's really bad. Different parts.
I saw some different stories, like this mother who lost her child and her mother. They were on the roof of their house.
Yeah.
And it broke away from the foundation. And then they ran into some trees and power lines that
both her parents and son, Magoo said,
threw her in the water. That is some scary stuff.
That's terrible.
Like, could you imagine getting your family on top of the roof and then all of a sudden your house breaks away?
Yeah.
And then you're on a houseboat, but not a fun kind
not
of
the good
houseboat.
kind.
No.
And it's not made for that.
No.
It's not made for that at all. So Tim Kennedy says, Charlie?
All right. For the federal government to say that they don't have enough money to help Americans is a slap in the face to every working American and spitting in the face of every American currently in South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, and Hawaii.
Now, I agree with that. I do have to slightly push back on a certain talking point, which is that FEMA's out of money because they spent all this money on migrants. Now, they have spent a lot of money on migrants, but as government budgets go, there are separate categories. There's a category for their disaster relief. There's a category for whatever it is they call doing the migrant stuff too. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be spending the money that's in whatever the migrant category is, and that they should instead be able to shift that money over to the disaster relief portion of their budget. All right? But they are different portions of the budget. And they spent $650 million, I believe, last year. They spent 400 something. The year before was about $1.1 billion that FEMA has spent in the last 2 years. Their budget's $30 billion a year. All right, just so you know. It's a good talking point. It highlights the fact that our government does not have the proper priorities, the priorities that it should have. Of course, we give hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries, specifically Ukraine and Israel. All right, we know that. And then we've spent billions of dollars helping people do what is still essentially against the law here in the United States, which is coming across the border illegally. All right. Now, Trump used FEMA money also for immigration. and people were mad about it. He used money for immigration, for border enforcement from FEMA, not for enforcing illegal immigration like what's being used in the last couple of years from FEMA. It's not like that's why they don't have any money. They don't have any money because the government sucks at everything it does. That's why they don't have it.
Mismanagementism.
Mm-hmm. This is an example. They prioritize. They got a portion of the budget. A bunch of it's going towards these migrant centers and going out to different cities. FEMA sending money out to different states and cities so they can have all these shelters and all that.
Well, and then if there aren't any like natural disaster emergencies, there has to be an emergency that these people are working.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, got to be something.
It's got to be something.
And so what we should take away from this is that the government is really bad at everything it does. It's really bad with money. They have really bad priorities. And
they have to make sure they spend the whole budget so they get more.
Mm-hmm. So you want to call something a crisis as much as you can, an emergency in their case, as much as you can, incentivizes them to declare different emergencies around the country. And we do have bad priorities here. We send a bunch of money out to other people in other countries, and then when something bad happens here, and they're saying they don't have any money, and we look at our government budget, we're like, yeah, we don't have any money either. We're going to have to borrow it or tax it or inflate it. That's the only thing we can do. It's really sad that when something like this happens, one of these agencies is supposed to help comes up and says, yeah, nothing we can do. We ain't got the funds. Now, I think that private people do a better job anyway. I think private people have been doing a better job in this situation. I think the government has been trying to prevent private people from doing a good job in this situation. Yeah. We saw stories like the helicopter pilot who was threatened with arrest.
From a firefighter.
A firefighter or a fire official. I don't know if it was a firefighter, one of the guys that drives one of the nice Suburbans around, with the special plates on it or whatever. Threatened with arrest. So he actually, he brought someone. He rescued one person, left his son and another person that he rescued there because the helicopter was not able to take that much more weight. And that's when they stopped him and said, yeah, we're going to arrest you if you do this. So he's like, well, I got to go back at least and get my son. And so he went back and got his son and then left the other person that needed rescued, knows right where they are, not allowed to go back and rescue them. They probably sat there for another day or so before someone came and got them.
It's awful.
There's also, I saw the video of Pete Buttigieg going around saying that people weren't allowed to fly their private drones in the area. Well, they were using drones to go around and look for people that were on their rooftops or in different areas that were needing rescue. Now, they say that that's because the really nice drones can go high enough that they could end up, causing a crash or something with a plane or a helicopter or something like that. So there's different ways you can make arguments that something like that could make sense, or maybe they're just being going a little bit too far with it. Starlink offering free internet service to people that are in the area. Good Lord, that's amazing. Do you know what kind of a new world we're in where there's a disaster area that's that big?
You can get communications into
and you can still use the freaking internet, probably get 300 megabytes a second and like that. I mean, that's amazing, And the government,
get communications into a disaster area like that is incredible.
Yeah,
that's one of the toughest things about something like this is you don't have any information. It's impossible to get information, and so to have something like Starlink come along, that is huge.
Mm-hmm. So we'll move on from that. I just want to say I think the government should stop making it more difficult for private people to help. I think the private organizations have done a better job so far. The Red Cross, Salvation Army, those people come in. And I think those people are generally better suited to help people in times of need. Also, it'd be great is if they didn't take our National Guards and send them over to the Middle East. When something bad happens, then you got most of your National Guard over in the Middle East, like what happened in Tennessee. They sent them to the Middle East like that weekend. The weekend that it all happened, And maybe our National Guard should be there in the state like they're supposed to be and helping the national portion and not the international police that we've become.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to is probably so swamped with applicants that he or she is tough to reach. So call early in the day, before 8 a.m., before the palace guards arrive. You'll need your prospect's direct number, and here's a sneaky way to get it. Suppose the company's main number is 555-5000. You should call 555-5012. When someone says, "Good morning, Pam Johnson," you should innocently say, "Oops, somebody here must have written this down wrong. I was calling for Tom Frederick. What's his direct number?" If the very next thing you hear isn't Pam giving you Tom's number, it may be, "Good morning, Tom Frederick." For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
We're expecting Milton to be a dangerous, large, powerful hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida, and it's going to bring multiple life-threatening hazards.
The director of America's National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan, warning that Hurricane Milton, gathering force in the Gulf of Mexico, is poised to be a once-in-a-century storm. It's already resulted in U.S. President Joe Biden cancelling a planned trip to Germany later this week, where he was due to meet Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. The president says he needs to stay in Washington to deal with the emergency created by Milton. With more on the storm, FSN's Mitch McCann.
Milton was registered as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday morning and is expected to hit Tampa late Wednesday local time as a Category 3. Residents are being warned to evacuate areas likely to be affected, and at least 9 counties have now made mandatory evacuation orders. Tampa's Mayor, Jane Castor, has issued a dire warning, saying if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Miami-Dade remains under a state of emergency ahead of the storm making landfall. Mayor Daniela Levine Carver is urging local residents to heed warnings about the storm's power.
Please make sure you have 3 days of supplies, non-perishable food and water, that they would be on hand for every member of your household.
In other news, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour, and his warnings about the horrific impacts of escalation are being ignored. The Secretary General has called for an immediate ceasefire both in Gaza and Lebanon. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Jody Jacobs reports.
Antonio Guterres has once again voiced his concern over the escalating violence in the Middle East. Guterres has described the situation in Lebanon as boiling over.
Every airstrike, every missile launch, every rocket fired pushes peace further out of reach.
The Secretary General has questioned the disregard for international law, saying there is something fundamentally wrong in the way this war is being conducted. He says civilians must be protected and their essential needs must be met, including through humanitarian assistance.
The head of the British intelligence agency MI5 says Russia wants to create sustained mayhem on British and European soil. Ken McCullum said Russian operatives are acting increasingly recklessly in Britain since the war in Ukraine got underway. The so-called godfather of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, has shared the Nobel Prize for Physics with another scientist, John Hopfield of Princeton University. Mr. Hinton quit Google last year, warning that he was concerned that the technology he had helped create poses dangers to society. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
So we'll move on to number 8, which is going to have a lot to do with Tim Walz. We got 2 more, number 8, and then number 9 comes after that, just in case you were wondering. This has to do with Tim Walz and some of his debate responses. I'm going to start you off with the China question and him lying about being there for Tiananmen Square. I want to play his response and then show you an article that discusses his misspeaking. It's just constant misspeaking.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
By the way, the question is, why did you lie about being at Tiananmen Square when it happened? That was the question. Yeah. And she did a good job. This is one of the times where the moderator came in and was like, hey, by the way, this was the question. Can I get an answer on it? I was shocked. I was shocked that they came back and still made him answer this, and it got so awkward.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Governor Walz.
Then he looks to Vance almost to like rescue him.
Yeah, please interject.
Say something here.
Interrupt me, please. Never interrupt your opponent. All right, here we go. I want to show you, I want to show you this article that came from the group. Thanks for posting this. Tim Walz has a tendency to misspeak. It may hurt the campaign. This could also be known as lying, but it depends on which side of the political aisle you come down on. That's the problem.
I misspoke.
You know, I hate it when you get caught up in the rhetoric and you're a knucklehead and you just misspeak, you know, and say that you were in New York on 9/11. You know, isn't that weird? I just hate when you say that. Now, he didn't say that, but what if someone did? It seems like that would be a lie. It's kind of something that you might remember. I don't know. He has a tendency to misspeak. Tim Walz has a problem misspeaking. Since being tapped as Kamala Harris's running mate, the folksy, plain misspeaking Minnesota governor has had to explain a growing number of inaccurate statements. I hate it when I get my life wrong. At times embellishments. You know, when you make things up that didn't happen. About his past. They range from comments about his military service to claims about his military service to his visit to Hong Kong more than 3 decades ago, clarifying that his family didn't specifically use in vitro fertilization. IVF, yes. It's unclear whether Walz's verbal errors I'm going to use this sometime in my life. I misspoke, will undercut his credibility with voters. But the need to continually clean up those claims could politically hurt Walz and Harris, who were locked in a tight race with Donald Trump. And in some cases, key members of Harris' circle weren't aware of some of the inaccurate statements until they became public despite the vetting process, according to 4 people familiar with the conversations who were granted an anonymity to discuss the matter. They talk about the military record. He repeatedly and inaccurately described himself as a retired command sergeant major, including in radio ads, but he never finished the final coursework to retire at such a rank. He did not retire at that rank. In 2018, he said he stated that he didn't want those weapons of war that I carried in war accessible to everyday Americans, but he, of course, misspoke on that because he was never deployed to a war zone. You know,
he did clean those guns.
That whole kind of thing. He cleaned them.
Yeah.
He cleaned them. He peeled the potatoes. He did all kinds of stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that they have to continuously say he has a problem misspeaking, or he makes inaccurate statements, or he embellishes, they can't just say that he lied about things because it sounded better.
He's a liar.
He's a liar.
Yeah.
But they can't say that. Do you think for 1 second Politico would hesitate in calling Trump or Vance a liar about a specific thing? I'm sure they haven't. Sure, they've called him that a million times. But they come up, it's like they went to a thesaurus and they typed in the word lie, and then they used all the words that aren't lie.
All the synonyms.
and that's how they wrote the article. Oh my gosh. And then the other thing that Tim Walz did was the answer on censorship, which was spawned by J.D. Vance not wanting to say that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. But whatever, we won't talk about that. Here's that portion.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to...
All right, so that's an important clip right there. He just said threatening, and he said hate speech. All right. You do have a First Amendment right to hate speech. We're not in the UK right now. You do have a First Amendment for hate speech.
I hate you.
Yeah, I hate, just like people hate Donald Trump, or they hate Republicans, or they hate, like, what is hate speech? You can't really define it. There's a specific group of people that apparently you can't say bad things about, but of course...
If I were to murder you, Nate, it would be because you're Japanese. Is that hate speech? Is there a racial motivation there?
Well, okay, that does sound like it's racially. It sounds like that'd be a hate crime. Actually, that's Asian hate.
If I were going to,
if you were going to, it would be for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's keep going.
I'm not going to. Just if I were to do it.
If you were,
from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
All right. You can yell fire in a crowded theater.
Mm-hmm. You can.
And this is annoying because this is a night where it turned out the moderators were fact-checking things, albeit in a very condescending manner. And be like, let's move on, and I just want to let you know that at the end of that, you were wrong about this. These are my thoughts on it. All right, Governor Walz, here we go.
Yeah.
You know?
But we have to move on.
Yeah, but we got to move on. Your time is up.
Yeah.
And so you can yell fire in a crowded theater. That whole idea came from a portion of an opinion from like 100 years ago. I think this had to do with the Espionage Act, but I'm making that up right now. So don't tell your friends that had to do with the Espionage Act, okay? But I've read about this several times, and for some reason that's clicking with me right now. It could be entirely wrong. It was a portion of one justice's opinion. It was not anything binding inside of that opinion. And also there have been new Supreme Court cases since then that have defined what incitement is. And it's not yelling fire in a crowded theater. Now, Tim Walz should know that. He's the governor of a state. Okay. He should know that. He's an older gentleman who should know what the laws are and the country that he's running to be the vice president of. J.D. Vance should know that immediately off the top of his head, that you can, in fact, yell fire in a crowded theater. We all just dealt with all this censorship, and we probably heard people say fire in a crowded theater a billion times.
We know this censorship personally.
Yes. So I'm sure he does, or he knows several people that were affected by it. His running mate was kicked off of social media, stuff like that. He should know that. All right. We've probably heard people say, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. I'm sure people have had to defend that before. So he should have known that. And then the moderators also should have known that as well. Like, that is just a flat out false statement that he just made. And keeping this narrative going that, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's just freaking annoying. He uses the hate speech thing, which is not constitutional at all. He's literally proposing censorship for hate speech in this answer right now.
As a guy who wants to be one of the leaders to try and protect your Bill of Rights.
A heartbeat away from being the president of the United States, and he's saying that you should censor hate speech. So that's not good. I don't like that. Do you like that? You don't like that, right?
No, I don't like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. All right, number 9,
as
John.
As much as I don't like you.
John, for being Asian. Yeah, I gotcha. John Kerry, this has been open in my browser all week, and I meant to talk about it every day this week. But this came from the World Economic Forum. Someone posted it in our Fed Haters Club as a submission as well. And this is John Kerry explaining the roadblock that the Constitution has put in their way of maintaining a consensus narrative with people. Used to send out the talking points to the 3 media channels that there were, and then you could essentially brainwash the entire nation at the same time, and you had no problems. That was fine. Yeah. And he is lamenting the fact that they can no longer do that in this clip. Here we go.
Which is why we need censorship.
Which is why you got to have censorship. Exactly.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And so that's really dangerous.
You're questioning really if democracy can survive unregulated
It's a crazy clip to me. That's why it went around all over the place.
First Amendment's the problem.
It is. It is a roadblock in the way of them censoring people that they don't like. Of course, they'll call it disinformation, whatever the specific thing is. But you can't trust them to decide what it is. And guess what? If Trump wins the election, I bet you people on the left wouldn't trust Trump to decide what's disinformation and what isn't. What is and what isn't, But the craziest part of that clip to me is him saying the quietest part out loud. And actually just looking back to the good old days when they used to control the narrative so easily because there were a lot less people that people would get their information from. And he said it was so much easier to get a consensus in the country on something. Then what he means is to manufacture a consensus. Mm-hmm. That's what he didn't say that word, but it used to be so much easier for the government, which he said used to be able to govern much more effectively and swiftly because they were able to get a consensus. They were able to manufacture a consensus on whatever the given issue was. And now social media has put a roadblock. The First Amendment too.
People
put a
are
roadblock
questioning things.
and be able to do this. Yeah. So I'm sure some places people get their news from, it's not true, or they take one single point and they just run away with it like it's the biggest number one reason thing in the world, but you can't control that. Like, people have to have access to all the different forms of information. Good Lord, what would COVID have looked like if we didn't have social media? Even the censored social media that we had, where you could still see some things that the censors hadn't found yet. Can you imagine if we just had like NBC and CBS and ABC and Fox, and that was it?
That's it.
You couldn't look at anything at all, and they would just read whatever talking points the government, faxed over to them that day.
God.
Can you imagine what it would have looked like?
Less roadblocks.
We'd still be locked down right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd probably be in different wars because all of America would be behind the wars.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way they would tell you the story, we'd have to be killing brown people.
We'd probably be full on war with Iran right now, more than likely. We'd probably have troops on the ground in Ukraine. It'd be totally different. Who knows what other countries?
Yeah, that's what the live group is saying. It would be 2003. How different would Iraq have been if we had social media back then?
Okay, let's get the votes in, everyone. Let's run through these. Time to get your votes in. Let me find. Wait, why is my? Oh, I just clicked on the Dumb Bleep of the Year voting channel. Number 1 was Make Them Riot. Number 2 was Kamala. Number 3, the Trump Bibles. Number 4, that Kamala ad with the everyday normal guy, just like me and you, who hates the government but's going to vote for Kamala. Number 5 was the Stop and Shop price gouging thing. Number 6, the debate analysis with the what was the beard? The aggressive beard. Anti-feminist,
stopping feminist ideals
beard, and the deep caring and feeling eyes that are about to pop out of your head. Number 7, FEMA. Number 8, Tim Walz, the censorship comments and the China response. Good Lord. Number 9, John Kerry. That's John Kerry.
It sounded a little bit like Paul Harvey there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Okay. All right, get your votes in, everyone. Go do it.
All right, while you're voting, I'm going to tell you about the sponsors and the links of the show notes. Go visit them. We mentioned Factor among several others. So go visit those. That's one way to support the show. You can also support the show by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and sharing the show around. Share it with a friend, a family member, or foe. All the links are on the social medias. All you have to do is go share it from there. Share it from your podcast app. It's super simple.
You know what's super important, by the way? Just hitting like or commenting on something that you see of ours on social media. It's very important for the algorithm.
Just engage.
The engagement rate versus the impression rate, very important.
We like it when it's up.
So yeah, you want that to be up. That's what the algorithm's like.
Yeah, do all those things. If you want to support this show monetarily, there's an easy way to do that by going to joingmail.com or godhatesfeds.com, be part of the Fed Haters Club. And every week when we do Dumb Bleep of the Week, when we want to, you have the opportunity to vote for the dumbest thing of that week, which will be entered into the dumbest thing of the year, and someone gets a trophy. There was a clear winner this week, the debate analysis between Vance's beard and Waltz's eyes.
It can be positive for some, this is Vance's beard, but to others, especially women, it can be negative, conveying aggression and opposition to feminist ideals.
Yeah. That looks like a beard that stops abortions.
It does. That beard,
I'll tell you what,
that beard beats women. I'm going to tell you what.
This abortion thing is getting more out of control.
Yeah.
I thought the debate was bad, but then I think it's getting worse. We've talked about this before, but the amount of women that are raging right now because they don't have the opportunity to freely murder children inside the womb without consequence.
Yeah.
Is astounding. For part of the species that's supposed to be so nurturing and caring and that take care of dogs, better than they do like humans. It blows my mind.
Right now,
there's like no empathy or compassion.
I would settle for going back to that. It used to be a bad, terrible, awful thing that you did that you thought about for the rest of your life and you were disgusted and that made you depressed.
Yeah.
It was like this awful, terrible, immoral thing to do, but you had to do it for some reason or whatever. And now it's just like you want to get a tattoo for every one of them you kill. It's totally disgusting.
They've completely flipped the moral narrative.
Yeah, it's wild
on this.
And whose job it is? It's people who think that it's immoral. Because the problem is we got it to the states now. Got it to the states. And a bunch of states are still voting in a lot of abortion protections. The problem is the ideological battle has not been won on this by people who see it as immoral or murder or whatever. You can't just fix it with a law on its own. Like almost everyone agrees that it's terrible to murder another human being. Pretty much everyone agrees that, except for a very, very small percentage of the population,
psychopaths,
who ends up doing that, And right now it's like 50, 60% of the country or more totally fine with abortion. And if it was like that on murder, we'd probably have different laws on murder in this country because people wouldn't agree that they were moral laws. Because people will follow moral laws. They're easy for people to follow because they don't naturally want to break them, It's not the state stopping you from doing it. It's like your own morals that keep you from doing it. And right now, we don't have that moral foundation for whatever reason. For whatever reason, it's not there.
Yep.
And until that is fixed, the laws might stop some, potentially. In fact, there's been more since the overturning the Roe versus Wade because the people are pushing the pill so hard, Until that ideological battle is won, that moral battle is won, you're not going to do much about it. You're really not. What do you guys think about this? I want to know your thoughts. Anyone listening right now, you can tag us on X and respond to that at Good AM Liberty. Make sure you're following us on X, by the way. Still feels weird to call it X, but whatever. Or you can also send one of us an email. You can send an email to Nate at goodmorningliberty.us or Charlie at goodmorningliberty.us. What your thoughts are on the abortion conversation that we just had or any of the other stuff that we talked about during Dumb Bleep of the Week. Remember that you need to follow Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app. Remember that you can watch the videos on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, all those good things. But if you don't do that, that's fine, because we'll be right back here again next Tuesday night as Liberty at Night, not Good Morning Liberty like we are every other day. If you want to join the Fed Haters Club so you can throw in submissions, though, join gmail.com. We'll see you guys again next Tuesday night.
Free Talk Live.
What do you think the appropriate punishment should be for somebody who rents out a room to somebody else without government permission?
I think it's no more than a cease and desist order.
But if she doesn't cease and desist, then what?
I guess at that point, you put liens on her property.
So that would lead to stealing her home, right? Unless she pays off those liens?
That's right.
Yeah. So you believe that the men and women calling themselves the government should be able to steal someone's home from them because they rented out a room without giving them money first?
If you don't pay your property tax, they put a lien on your house.
I know.